right, we're set up. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piscor. I'm here with Bryan Moss. Bryan, say hi to the people.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Bryan Moss here.
And Uncle Geof Darrow. Say what's up, Geof.
What's up, Geof?
We all just came back from Manga Quest 2022, Tokyo, Japan. We got a couple of days of sleep back in our homesteads. I was gonna say back in the States, but Geof is coming to us from France, and that gives us a little bit of time to digest the travels. So I thought it would be fun to debrief the trip. Jim Rugg sorely missed. I'm going to drag him kicking and screaming to Manga Quest 2023. But It's all but confirmed, man. We're doing it again this next year. Bryan, this was your first trip to Japan, man, and it was fun seeing the experience through your eyes, man. Your eyes, I could see the whites all around the irises almost the whole time.
Totally. Yeah, it's one of those things where it was pretty revealing. It's eye-opening because, right, like, so I draw comics for a living and do painting and art and all that stuff, but I always felt like there was something missing. And it was one of those things where finally when I made it to Japan and you actually get access and you can see original art, all the above, it changes literally the DNA of how I approach comics now. I don't know if you guys had that same experience or anything that you could add to that, Geof.
No.
Geof, you've been going there since the early '80s, right?
Yeah, I went there in '82. I saved my money while I was working at Hanna-Barbera, and I took a course in Japanese so I could speak a little bit. And I was there for 2 months the first time. I stayed in youth hostels, and I went around quite a bit. It wasn't just, spend a lot of time. I mean, in those days they didn't weigh baggage, so I brought back like these duffel bags full of comics, manga.
When we were there, I was joking that I'm the shortest of all of us, and I'm about 6'2". So when the three of us were together, it was always a sight to behold, and you definitely felt the eyeballs on you. How many days out there? Because this is the part I always forget when I'm out there, man. But it took me about 2-3 days until I got like that culture shock of like the smallness of a lot of stuff, having to bend down a little extra far to sit in a chair. Going to the bathroom, having your knees touch the door or the wall or something.
Well, it's always one of those things where my partner and I we've been talking about going to Japan for a long time. And I would always say, I can't lay down anywhere. I can't sit down anywhere. Everything's too small. So, I mean, it still was kind of true, but it was still manageable. But yeah, dude, that height thing, we're walking down the street and we look like a freaking wall, wall of meat.
Yeah, I always feel really self-conscious and it makes me nervous because I think I'm taking up so much space. Like when we went to Nakano Broadway and I'd go into those small shops and I think, my God, they're like, God, I can't wait till this kaiju gets out of here. I always thought I was scaring people away. They go, oh, don't go in there. Wait till he comes out. And it's just probably, well, maybe not. It's just me, but yeah, it's, the hardest part for me are the chairs is because they're a little lower. And so I feel like I'm kind of, you get into a couch where the springs aren't any good and you sink into it. I always feel really low to the ground. So getting up is always like, oh, yeah.
Geof, you know what? This is real fun to debrief the trip because there were things that happened that I remember that I meant to even just bring up 10 minutes after they happened, but just the sort of decorum of the situation, can't be getting too loud in public places and stuff. But Geof, when I think it was the first time you and I went to Nakano Broadway, and for people who aren't familiar, Nakano Broadway is like the otaku mall, man. Maybe 15, 20 stores that can fulfill all of your nerd needs.
Yeah, at least 15 or 20.
Yeah. You know what? There actually were a lot that disappeared.
Yeah,
from 2019 when I was there last due to COVID and whatever. So it has diminished, but Mandarake is still going strong. Anyhow, when we get off the train, I don't know if you noticed this, Geof, and I didn't want to snap a picture or anything like that, but we get off the train, go through the gate, and right next to you was, I believe what they call them now, little people. There was a little person that was right next to you. So it was legitimately the tallest guy in the station and the shortest adult walking right next to each other. and I just gave you a couple paces ahead of me just so that I could like soak it all in. It was a sight to behold. Not unlike Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger twins or something like that, but even more severe.
Yeah. Yeah. I always, when I lived in Chicago, I would go to the same supermarket, and there was I don't know, see, a small person that worked there. And I always felt so guilty because, my God, I've got way too much height. If I could just give her some of my, make her life a little easier. And
For people that don't know, Geof, how tall are you actually?
I'm a little over 6'6". Yeah. And it was like one of those things where, I was in school. I was 6'2" when I got out of high school, so I kept growing. And but the other kids that were in the sports were annoyed with me because I wasn't at all athletic. And I think it was like, it's all so wasted on this big idiot. He talks about his comic books and, that he won a no prize, and, he draws these goofy pictures, and yeah.
Yeah, I got that put on me also, man. Being tall and uncoordinated. Why don't you play basketball, dude? Because I can't. You don't want to see that mess, man.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and you'd have like, I would get off the. So it was just that they'd have in gym class, they'd have the shirts and the skins, and I was heavy and I was very self-conscious, and that those coaches would always like, okay, Darrow, you're on skins, just to embarrass me.
Yeah.
They knew it, anyway.
That's such a dick move, man.
Yeah,
The very first time I laid eyes on you, Geof, was the first time Bryan laid eyes on you also, man. We met you in Shinjuku. I was there a couple days ahead of you guys. Mm-hmm. And the first real day that I had there, I felt like it was important to hit up all the Mandarakes at once. And I think we clocked in about 27,000 steps. The people with me, because they have that shorter stride, probably hit 30. And it was like saying, listen, guys, I'm home. Like that town. It was important that we were there, and it's important that we go there regularly because of how they embrace comics. Geof and I did the Comic-Con out there for 2 days. We'll get into that, but skipped out on the third day, which would have been a Sunday, and I went to a convention called Comitia in the same town where people are selling their original doujinshis and stuff. And on that day, there were no less than 3 comic conventions happening at once in the same city. Like that's how you're in the place you need to be, man. But when we first laid eyes on you, Geof, man, that we were on our way to Sakaido, the art store, grabbing some supplies. You brought a bunch of original art to sell at the convention. Sold out of all that stuff, so you had to get that little portfolio book for people to flip through.
Yeah, so they didn't have to carry that extra weight.
Yeah,
I think I left it with. I gave it to Yo.
Yeah, Peach's partner.
Yeah.
And one of the other duties that you got to perform once you go to Sakaido in Tokyo is you got to take the snap in front of the screen tones. Like a whole aisle full of Zipatone screens, or to be clear, deleter screens, because Zipatone's a company just like Kleenex is, And everybody around us is like, what's the big fucking deal, man? But it's so impossible to find that stuff in the States, and it's so hard to articulate to anybody but cartoonists. Like I would post the photos on the Instagram and other social media of us like in those aisles, and you could see the people who are artists and people who are not, because half the people are like, oh, that's fucking amazing, which ones did you get, yada yada, and then other people are like, what is that, what's the big deal?
Yeah, it was pretty funny actually, because the same reaction on my post. Everybody's like, yo, where's those deleters? Can you bring me back some? And, I grabbed probably about a couple $100 in the zips. But then I come back here, I looked them up online, and they're like waxing for them. They're charging like 4 to 5 times the amount. I'm like, there's no way I'm paying $22 for that. You know what I mean? So it was pretty eye-opening even there, but there has to be some way to get that stuff distributed here.
Yeah, that was the thing. That was kind of funky. Like I when I went there the first time, I completely ran out of space. I couldn't fit another piece of computer paper into my luggage. I just had so much stuff. And then my whole thing was like, okay, I'm going back. Like I'm going to go scoop it up. But then when COVID happened, obviously like they shut the gates on us. And shouts to Chris Piers, the guy from Comics Tropes, because the whole trip came about because he posted that Japan opened its gates to everybody, starting October 12th or something. And I saw that, sent it to Geof, sent it to Bryan, and then I think we all made our trips planned like within 3-4 days of that.
Yeah.
But when COVID happened, I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna have to. There were specific dot screens that I saw out there because I visited a bunch of mangaka and I was going through their stacks, and the ones that they use to be reduced down to like a 6x9 tankobon is the SE60 series. So it's like SE60, SE61 to SE69. So I just ordered those online, and not only do they wax you for each individual piece, man, because out there in Sakaido, the art store, they were $429 yen, and it's 135 yen to a dollar right now. And when we first were there, it was about 150 yen to a dollar. So do the math, $2-3 per screen, and they charge 12 to 15, $18 per, plus it's being shipped from Japan. So there's that added shipping charge too, and I paid a whole lot of money for those 10 screens.
I wanted to mention to you, Ed, because when you told me you were shipping your books back, I shipped 2 boxes back, and I didn't mention this. I didn't want to make this, but because when I've been there before, I just go into the post office, fill out the forms, and send it. It was really easy. They've changed it to where now you're supposed to do it online.
Yeah.
What?
And maybe because we're foreigners, they let you get away with it. Because I know, like, I had a friend of mine, he, did all the forms before and met me when I went to the post office the day before I left, and I had him gone. But I when you told me you're going to mail us stuff, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to make you nervous. But fortunately, you did. Because I got mine. They both of them. I shipped them to my daughter, but they all got there fine. I mean, the Japanese postal service is just fantastic.
Yeah, it was a little funky, and I was prepared because my homeboy Aki, who did the translation during the Takashi Okazaki shoot interview that we recently posted, he was like, yo, dude, take my address, take my phone number to make the process so much easier. I didn't know about the digital part, but when I got there, through some trial and error, trying to, communicate back and forth, I realized that they give you this QR code, shoot the QR code on your phone, and then it pulls up the stuff that you have to put on the label, so that you just do it digitally. And then what's cool is, you pop in your address, all that stuff. It's a little bit confusing because there's some weird multiplication that happens, because it turns out they want you to list, they're about lists, man. Did you notice every time you buy something, they also calculate the amount of things that you buy?
Yes.
So I'm not used to that. And I put, unit 1, and then the value total for everything, like, $1,000 or something. And then it multiplied it at the end. And after I put, about how many books were in there. But after you do all that shit, you pop in your email address, and then it emails you a QR code. You take this QR code over to this other station, just put it underneath the little scanner, and it spits out your digitally printed label that they can then just like slap on there. So it was super simple, and it has tracking. So I've been tracking my stuff, and I sent 2 packages, and because that yen is so cheap, it's fucking hard to spend money out there, man. Like the convention was pretty profitable for me also, gave me a lot of spending cash, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna blow it, and buy a whole bunch of comics. I bought a whole nother luggage at Don Quixote, filled that up to the weight limit, filled up 2 others to the weight limit. So I'm like, okay, I guess a lot of my money will be spent on shipping, because I'm, okay, I'm going to buy all the expensive books I always wanted. I bought Kaba 2. I bought that big Domu that you bought, Geof, which was, that's a story in and of itself. But it was the shipping that really cost anything. So like one package was a little over $200 US, and the other one was about a little over $300 US. So it's not insignificant loot, but it feels like found money because it was just yen that came to me from the Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. And I'm like looking at the tracking numbers right now. One is still a little bit stuck. Like but I anticipate it's going to show up within the next day or two. It's being at customs.
It happened to mine too. Yeah, one got fast, and the other one was like 3 or 4 days later.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
But it was real alarming to me seeing this one tracking number that said item returned from import customs, and I'm like,
Yeah,
fuck.
My daughter got the same thing.
Yeah.
So,
Like it's bad wording, you know, because it just meant that it's a good thing. It meant that it was processed through customs and sent through. But I had to Google that because I'm like, fuck, there goes that package. And what that package was I just went ham, and I got it's a box with like 17 of these Studio Ghibli storyboards that Miyazaki and that other fella did for their various movies. So it's every drawing. And when you go through these shits, man, there's going to have to be episodes about this for sure, because these are Miyazaki comic books, you know, at the rawest level. Just pencil drawing, the storytelling is all there. You can tell everything that's happening, and these are sacred fucking tablets, man.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the first one. That's the one that's getting pushed through first. But then I went and got.
Bryan, did you have to mail it? Did you mail anything or?
Yeah, I brought everything back with me in a package. As you know, Geof, thank you for the gift. So appreciate it. But yeah, I was able to bring back everything and two suitcases and then one backpack. I once again, and to Ed's point, I thought I was prepared to drop like, geez, you know, a lot of money there. And everything was just so affordable that it was almost like I had to like pull myself back and show restraint, you know, and not go too crazy with it. But yeah, definitely. I didn't ship anything though, no.
That last day I was considering playing Supermarket Sweep because I shipped that second package and I still had so much in my wallet. And I'm like, well, fuck it, man. Like, I'm going to go try to get another round of stuff. But then reality kicked in and I'm like, you know what? This is the day before I'm going to be traveling for 24 hours plus. You know, I'm going to take it a little easy. You know, I shipped the second package. Like, at a certain point, pigs grow to become hogs. You know what I mean? So, like, just be happy with all the bounty that I brought. And even, like, Michel Fife hit me up. He's like, dude, it looks like you pulled a heist on Japan, dude, with, like, the stuff that we pulled out. Because I think what's funny also is that we pulled a lot of the same material out of like, the Mandarakes and stuff. It was a big Willie story, man, the way Geof got that Domu, because it was that we bumped into that guy, Japan Book Hunter on Instagram, Koenji Sean, who runs a really cool business getting obscure manga and shipping them worldwide to his customers. And he joined us at Nakano Broadway that one day. And we were looking at the kind of expensive wall books. You know, they have these glass cases that have like kind of the more rare stuff, and it's all, you know, the flyest, biggest cartoonists of the day. Like lots of Otomo. I remember seeing that Takehito Iniowa dude who did Slam Dunk had a bunch of like art books and things. And then he pointed that one giant hardcover thing out, and it's all just in Japanese script or whatever. And he's like, oh, that's Domu. And it was this oversized giant Domu. And I was like, oh, man, that must be the size of the original art. Imagine that 2-page spread of Old Man Cho's face. Like, what must that look like? Jeff Darrow was like, well, let's go find out. Walked right in, man. Threw down that yen and was like, yo, I want that Domu out there. And
well, I felt bad because I thought, well, I know you kept talking about the Otomo, the Genga book. Genga, is that the word?
Yeah. Genga.
And I thought, well, you didn't seem to, because I didn't want to like snatch it from you because you found it, but you didn't seem like, well, you know, okay. And then on top of it, they had two, which was great. And the one that I got, there was like a dent on the carton that it's just this cardboard thing. And I kept going, yeah, it's fine, I want it. Yeah, I want it. You don't have to open it up. I just want it.
Yeah.
It was 130,000.
Yeah.
Which was about $100 actually.
Yeah.
But the one that I got
great deal.
was 127. So that was still, you know, it still brought it around to about $80. So
yeah.
that, you know, $80 for this thing, you know. Man.
Right. Right.
But it's the kind of thing where if you think about it, the reason why they're probably out there is because space in Japan is so, you know, that I'm sure someone got it and go, well, I just don't have room for this anymore.
Yeah, because like check that out, man. And then like to compare it, like I have the like this is what we got in the States. You dig? So this is what we got in the States.
the same.
And this is the it's got a nice slipcase. It has that like soft hardcover like on good children picture books. And the art is probably the same size as the original artwork. There's also only 5,000 of these too, so that rarity bumps up the price in a big way.
Yeah, there's the cat.
And there's mine with, and I don't know if you can tell, see the little dents. I mean, which is like, I'm just like, I don't care. I mean, you know, I'm not that, you know, you ever see those guys that go in and they got that comic and they're holding it up and they're looking at it and like, you know, oh, I think I see like there's like one grain of cyan which is off on the cover, and so they're not going to buy it because they want it to be, you know, they're going to put it in some slab thing. And
yeah, it's silly stuff for sure, man. There was that dude at the Comic-Con who was like selling slabbed books. Like he was like the one retailer who was selling slab books. It was that one guy that kept coming around like, oh, you guys should have a bigger line, like blah blah blah.
Was he American?
No, he's a British dude.
Okay, got it.
oh, that guy, that weird, I'm sure. Because he just said some stuff that was just kind of,
Yeah,
but, you know,
there's that social thing that you have to do at Comic Cons in a way, man, where you got to give a little bit of grace to people because maybe it's like they ain't coming out of the crib all that often and interacting. So
well,
if it's
well,
like
even-
another dude here in Homestead talking that kind of stuff, man, that you got to defend yourself or you can't like step out the house. But like that guy, he hit my last nerve, man.
oh yeah, I can't remember what it was that he was talking about. This like, I was like rolling my eyes, like, oh man, this guy has no idea.
I got you cracking up too, Uncle Jeff, man, because like it was like, you know what? It occurs to me that you guys don't have a line, Ed, because they don't know that you're the author of Red Room. So I could bring some slabbed copies here to promote that you're the Red Room guy. And I
Oh
was like-
yeah, that was it.
And I was like, fuck slabs, man. Our comics, our comics breathe. We like to read comics over here, man. And then you know he let us be the rest of the day.
Yeah. And I think he went over to Peach, Momoko, and Yo's and was, I heard him going on about something. I'm like, man.
Caught several art shows. You know what, man? Like I was tasked with being the dude to sort of set certain things up, man, which was real unfortunate for everybody because doing that one day of travel to get there and not sleeping, like I was a day behind everything. Where I felt like, Bryan, if you remember, like we took a trip out to Jimbocho because I thought that we were going to meet Miss Sheena to go to the Yonazawa Museum.
Right.
And I hit
We
her
were
up.
off that day, I think, right?
Yeah. I hit her up and was like, all right, man, we're just catching some lunch. And she's like, oh, that's tomorrow. And then with Jeff, like I'm like, oh, dude, yeah, we're going to see Peach and Yo tomorrow, blah, 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 all this stuff. And then like I'm setting it up with Yo and he was like, no, dude, that's tomorrow. I'm like, holy fuck. Like I need to get myself under control. Like just not sleeping that one day and having that one extended day pushed my internal clock. My mental clock was completely off by like 24 whole hours, man. Like the international dateline, that's some real shit.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were in Jimbocho, also, by the way, like Jimbocho's not what it used to be either, man, because of COVID and some of the key shops definitely are not there that were there 3 years ago. But some of the bigger ones are there. And one thing that I noticed was that the prices of the Darrow magazines have bumped up a whole lot. They're either being repriced for inflation, you know, with the value of the yen, or people are going in and they know the deals that they were getting, and you know now things are being priced accordingly. But when we went to Jimbocho for that museum tour, the part that's open to the public on the ground level, it was that cartoonist. Complicated name, man. I'll never remember it. But Jeff, he's that guy who did that. Yeah, that like Tom Sawyer looking kid with the straw hat, the fisherman kid.
I can't remember the guy's name. Every cover it's him and he's like arching his back and his poles arched. And he's like a giant largemouth bass in the foreground. And just the whole idea that comic exists, I find fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, that's Japan in a nutshell, too, man. With these fucking comics, like looking in these Shonen Jumps, it's like there are whole stories that are Gulf. You know, like of all the stuff in the Shonen Jump, that could be
Well, there's-
successful and stuff. This guy's going to try his hand at like getting a golf comic over.
There was one that became very popular here. Popular, but about a sommelier. You know what that is? That's a
wine tasting.
wine taster,
Mhm.
and it's like, that, really? I mean, and it's just amazing to me that those things exist.
Yeah.
I think it was. I'll go ahead, Ed.
No, go ahead, B.
I was going to say, I'm seeing that original art. That's where I was referring to, like that it was really eye opening because I never seen, and I mean, just consider me like naive, I guess. That one line, I never would consider drawing just this single delineated line on any piece of art, and to see that over and over again while looking at that stuff was pretty eye opening. That stuff was pretty wild when you actually see the original work. So it's definitely like a highlight for me.
That Tom Sawyer shit though, like Jeff, how you talk about like with the arch back and all that, like there were at least 3 2-page spreads, full paintings that would have been either like a double page spread introduction to an episode or wrap around a cover. And we know what those covers and those splash pages look like. The editors go in and they put all this bombastic bubble lettering everywhere and typography all over the place. And I just couldn't imagine putting that in that level of work to have so much of it covered up. You know, we're talking about individual scales on the tiniest fish with highlights on each of those scales. And then together, like all 3 of us, we went to that other art show for that mangaka. I don't remember his name either, but the comic was called Sex, but it's not a porn comic.
Yeah,
Has nothing to do with fornication, as far as I could tell from the pages that were on display.
furtive glances, lots of furtive glances.
But one of the fascinating parts about that show, you know, was because the craft of all these people, it's unassailable. It's all there all the time, you know. But one of the things I was making note of there was they would, whoever's assistants were, because you could see on the original art, there would be blue line to indicate like where zips would go. It would just be like the side of the pencil of a blue line pencil to just shade in, and then the zip-a-tone would go right over top of that. So it's probably an assistant doing it. But what the assistant would do is gang up the zips. So put like one layer down and then take that exact same screen and cut off like a darker gray level. And we know that like if you are just dilly-dally and just throw it down there without thought, you're going to create that moire pattern. But what this fucking assistant did for each of those pieces, man, and there would be, 5-10 per panel where they're having these 2 layers of gray. They would match the dots up so that it would create just these parallel lines of shading rather than just like dots that competed. And we're talking about dots that are a millimeter apart at best. So this assistant is like going blind, matching these zips up to make sure that it creates a perfect parallel line of shading to give you a darker value. And that's the kind of stuff that gets lost when you look at it in print. And that's the kind of stuff that the mangaka, certainly the assistant, probably didn't get very much credit for.
But man, those I didn't buy the book. I thought about it because the original art was so impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I was like, God, do I need this one? Because I mean, it is basically, I don't know if the word would be static. I mean, there's a lot of static. It's not a lot of movement going on in it, but those, God, the use of the craft tin on that is just so amazing, and just the level of work. And then they were selling. I was surprised because they were actually selling the artwork in that gallery, and the prices were really pretty for what those things were. I thought, wow, this stuff is pretty well priced. It's not that expensive, I didn't think, for what they were.
And the pieces were actually selling. That was also,
Yeah, for sure. And like when you say static, the artwork, it's unlike a lot of the comics that like we pull stuff out, right? Like I got like the Bunko set of Kinikyu Man, and it's such a visually driven narrative where it's just dudes fighting, cause and effect on every panel, cause effect, and it was clear that was a more cerebral story that just takes place through the dialogue so it would be lost on us visually. But another thing I noticed with that dude's art show was that there's a lot of vehicles involved, like those big tub-like old school airplanes, like World War II era airplanes and motorcycles and stuff. And like the physics that he was able to capture with all that shit. Like he was able to capture the drift of these motorcycles, and he was able to catch like the heaviness of these airplanes taking off. And it all had to do with just the pitch of that plane in the sky. You know, he just had the perfect pitch to make it seem like that ass was so fucking heavy and so hard to like come off the ground. And then when you see the subsequent panels where it's a different moment in time, but that plane is still pretty fucking low, that just also communicates that like, man, this thing is taking a little while to get up there. And it's those kind of lessons that you could take from this stuff if you don't know the language, you know, like people were responding to a lot of my hauls and stuff like, well, how do you read this shit? And it's like you're kind of missing it in a way because, yeah, I don't know the language, but I also have been collecting comics since before I was able to read English either. And you could kind of tell what the story is in a Marvel comic. You know, it's Jack Kirby paced that stuff out.
It's funny, Ed, because the way you're describing and we're talking about this art show, it's going to drive people crazy. They're going to wonder what manga this is from. So I can just imagine.
Yeah, it's called Sex, but it's like good luck trying to type in sex manga and to find the name of it. So like I have to hit up Aki.
And the results you get.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was trying to be more prepared, but
yeah,
I know, it's all good.
Yeah, there was that other. Go ahead, Geoff.
No, I just get when we were in there. The thing that was funny was there's this table in there, and it had paper and pens on it. And I don't know. I think it was I started. I sat down. I don't know if I drew something or I did. Oh, I did like a stick figure or something.
You're a stick man, yeah.
Because I thought it was a thing where they had people would come in and like kids because it was a really low time. I thought it was a kid.
Yeah, we call those things connectors in the museum world. It's like somewhere where a kid would sit down and make a piece of art and put it on the wall.
Yeah, and I thought, well, and I just because the stuff was so intricate. I thought all this little stick figure as a kind of a the yin to the yang, and then there were bribes, and then how did we figure out that that was an artist?
Aki yelled at me. He goes, "That's for the manga kai. That's not for the viewers."
Because he would come in and do drawings for people, which was like, wow, I wish we had been there when the guy was there, because that would have been fascinating to see this guy.
Oh, totally. See him draw with kids material also.
Because that is the thing. Not only was the table super, super low to the ground and looked like it was like Legos, like a Lego table or something.
Yeah.
But the paper was 2 biscuits above toilet paper. I swear to God, some of the markers said Crayola on them.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And he's like, no. He's like, we're gonna get kicked out of here, man. That's for the sensei. He comes in every day and draws pictures for people.
They would have just been like silent, and I'm sure they were like, oh, look at that big goofy. What is he doing over there? He's sitting at sensei's table.
Yeah.
They're not gonna say anything. Because I mean, if we were Japanese, I bet they might have jumped on us right away. But it's like, what did they? It's like, oh, they don't know any better. I mean, because.
Right.
That's a thing over there. You get a lot of like, well, like even the wearings of the mask. I was told, you wear your mask. If you don't wear it, no one's going to say anything to you because you're a foreigner. But when we were over there, they did a little test. I mean, everyone wore a mask outside and inside. But
except for the white dudes that were walking around out there.
I didn't wear mine outside because I thought it was ridiculous.
Yeah, all the Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Table, that was funny.
Yeah, it was just like I went to last time, 2019. I went to a Kinnikuman art show that was just in the Tobu department store. It's the Ikebukuro stop on the JR line, and they had that section. Like they had that section at the end of the art show, where the gallery space where it's like draw your favorite muscle man figure and paste it up on the wall. So it felt logical, but yeah, Aki embarrassed us out like we ran away afterward. Man. We hung our heads in shame. And
they had a Miyazaki show when I was there in like 2009, and they had all his layouts from all the movies, and it was just floors of this stuff, and some of them were gigantic. And at the end of it, on the wall, they just had this paper, and everybody could go up there and draw their own version of Totoro.
Oh, cool.
And they had like a big Totoro painted on the floor that you could go and sit on, and then you could go up a flight of steps and take a picture of you like sitting on the stomach or laying on the stomach, like from the film, which was really nice. So I really like that table. Like I said, I just thought, wow, you know.
So, Bryan, you worked in a gallery space, man, at the Columbus Museum of Art. So that begs the question, man. What happens with all that shit that people draw and put up on the walls after a show comes down?
Dude, they totally filter that shit out like every week. Half of it gets thrown away. Half of it people make fun of because usually it's going to say something raunchy on there. So it's a constant editing. But yeah, with all that stuff, it ends up just sitting in a stack. It ends up going in the trash half the time. But honestly, if you think about it, if you hold on to that shit for like a couple of decades, it actually might be worth some money. You know, you might have a genius in there, a little talented artist, you know.
There was that one part where our paths diverged, Uncle Geof, but we thought about you the whole time when we went to Diverse City to go check out the Unicorn Gundam. But then we had to go to what was called the Unko Museum.
Oh God, I wish I'd
Yeah, and Unko is like poop at the mall there. So we were just like, fuck it, we're here, man. Let's go to the poop museum. There's this cute look. It looked like the Michelin Man, except it was a female with a little tip on the head, but it's had the like all the marshmallowy parts, ushering you in. And we're like, fuck it, let's go to the poop museum. They bring you in. They have 15 toilets lined up of various color, numbered, and this guy goes on a spiel about how cute Unkos can be. And he does some growling and shit, and he was like, how about you all make your own Unkos? And before you get in there, yeah, before you get in there, they tell you many times, do not shit on the toilet. like there are so many signs that are like,
because you know it happened. That's wrong.
Yeah.
Somebody from Iowa or something.
Yeah, they're not going to put up the warning unless it's happened. Usually those are reactionary.
The warnings were significant. So then they sit you on the toilets, and then, on a count of 3, like everybody growls. And when you stand up, there was this little trap door in there, and when you look down, there's like a plastic like poop emoji, like in there waiting of various color, and then they put it on a stick. So now you're walking around with this little turd on the stick, going through the various other exhibits, and that the stick has a function because you put it into various exhibits, and it makes the exhibits happen. There are various games. Like there was the one, our favorite room, I would say, Bryan, maybe you could corroborate, was you go into this room, there's a big screen, and it's a game. It's kind of connected to 2 microphones, and you go to the microphone, you kind of growl into it, and on the screen grows a turd that corresponds with your growl. So like me and Bryan.
Why a growl?
Well, a grunt.
Okay.
Yeah, like a shit grunt. But if you growl, you'll have a more effective giant turd.
Ah, okay.
And Ed's main competition was a little 3-year-old girl.
and try as she may, she was just creating cute little pellets, man.
Yeah.
But like
Ed has a shy sphincter.
I created these gigantic bitches, man, that like after you create yours, it'll like an object will come up on the screen to compare its size to. And one of them was Big Ben.
Mm-hmm.
And then Aki said that like that he's like, dude, that's a dad joke because shit is Benjo. And after a dad who hasn't had fiber in days and goes a couple days without shitting out there, finally like does his business, he'll say, I made a Big Ben. So that was a joke, man. So I wonder if there would also be like a sardine or something, like a big barracuda, and I wonder if that has some dad joke component built into it also.
A Moby. It's a Moby.
Yeah. But Geof, I
remember
missed you there.
I just remember in high school there was like one day there was all the boys in the bathroom and they're milling around and they're, what's going on? And someone had left a Big Ben in there. To this day, it was like a loaf of Wonder Bread. It was like coming out of the water. It was so big.
Yeah, I've seen those, man, at restaurants and stuff.
We took a picture of it because we wanted to put it in the yearbook. And of course, there was a Catholic school. And of course, one of the Christian brothers, they came in and they must have got a hatchet and broke it up to get rid of it. Wow.
Can't get paid
So
enough.
how long were you in the museum for? How long was that?
We'd say, Brian, like maybe 35, 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was a good time. Yeah, I would say about that. Yeah.
Bunch of picture taking opportunities. But the reason I bring it up is because towards the end, they did have the piece where you draw and you add to the wall.
That's right. Yeah.
Gosh, I would have liked to have been there for that. Man.
Yeah.
I know what I would have drawn.
I might have drawn something similar, Uncle Geoff, because like Brian even yelled at me. He's like, dude, you're the only one.
Yeah, it was like literally shit coming out of a naked, hairy ass. And it's funny because I posted them on Facebook, the pictures, and everyone likes Ed's drawing. So I'm like, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I would have done a dog because I always like that whole thing where it dilates.
But Jeff, you kind of indirectly did it because when we were at the art supply store, you drew the self-portrait with the unko on top of your head, if you remember that.
I do. Well, that all came from because I remember I used to buy the first Toriyama comics I ever bought were Dr. Schlump, and they always had, crap jokes in there. I mean, the big thing was that she had a duel with this guy who was supposed to be Superman. They called him Superman, and she's like this super powerful robot that can just do anything, but she won't touch poop, and he does touch poop. So he wins the fight between himself and the robot girl.
I think
and always had that little swirl that sort of like it looked like an ice cream, like a soft serve cone.
I've read that the poop emoji on our phones that we all sort of know, like that's a Toriyama design. That comes from him, probably from Dr. Slumpman, because the legacy of that comic and that character has spanned the decades. When I was out there for Halloween, I saw dozens of Arale-chans walking around in costume and shit. So when we were preparing,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying when we were preparing to do our manga theater episode that translated Akira Toriyama one shots and all that stuff, I was doing some reading, and when the Dr. Slump anime came out, it was on at like 8 p.m. on one of the prime channels, and Toriyama held that spot on that network, that half hour, for over 18 years, because it was Dr. Slump and then it was Dragon Ball right after that, man. So for 18 years, that space on that TV back in the day when there was 5 channels over there, maybe less.
Yeah.
Like
I went over there. I was over there when Dr. Slump was at the height of its popularity. And I remember watching it in a hostel. They had it, and they were like, I asked them, well, what channel is Dr. Schlump on? They were like, what is this? They probably thought it was a pedophile or something.
Yeah,
because they just wanted to see it. But I mean, it was everywhere. You could get like Dr. Schlump toilet paper, Dr. Schlump salt and pepper shakers. I mean, salt and Dr. Schlump cereal. I mean, it was. I think that they said that year that on the Forbes list of richest people in Japan, he was like 4th on the list or something.
I was looking in a it was an Amazing Heroes issue. I got it right over there. It's from the early 90s. And they brought up the top 10 richest individuals in Japan. 6 of them were mangaka.
Yeah.
The top richest individuals, man. Like once again, that's the reason why we got to be out there every now and then to just like live in that fantasy world of this is what comics can be. And I call it doe-eyed naivete or something, man. But like I don't see a reason why we can't have that. We just have to like not complain and try to make some changes,
right.
Holistically. But like I feel like we could have that. We could share in that space, man.
Well, do you know what the percentage is? I mean, what a mangaka gets on when they collect them, do they get?
Yeah, it's
20%, 30%.
I think Aki said it was about 30% on original tankobon, and then like the bunkos and all that kind of stuff. That's a different cut, but they also make stuff during the episodes also. So you know, like these guys, it's the craziest empires that they build, because it's this like cyclical business model where the comic is an advertisement for the anime, which is an advertisement for the video game, and those are like the big tent poles. There's probably anime or movies, and then there's all the little shit like your salt and pepper shakers. And Geoff, it's in the other room. It made it. You got me that Kinnikuman. It was an eyeglasses holder. You put it next to your bedside table, and it's Kinnikuman going like this, and you could just put your eyeglasses into it when it's time to go to sleep. Like that's a thing that exists. You know what I mean? And that's a license.
So many things that I saw that I wanted to buy you, but I didn't know you, because I thought, well, he's got too much stuff. And I know how it is, because it's like, sometimes it's what in French they call a poison gift. It's a gift, but it creates a problem. And I thought, oh, I've given him this. He's going to think I'm such a jerk, because where is he going to, or I think I said, just if you don't like it, just leave it in the hotel. The same with you, Bryan. Because if you don't like it, just well, there's my Koji Masamoto, my favorite manga.
Yeah, this is some wild shit, man. That Geoff put into my bags, man. This blue thing, that is a giant penis.
It is
with a nutsack hanging from its face, and its sister right here is this big face pussy gimmick. And
the name of that character, because I think it was Bob, the Afro samurai artist, told me, because I said, what do they call this thing? It's called the shit-eating old man. It's literally what his name is, and that's what he does. That's how that creature lives. It lives off human feces. I mean, it's like, who thinks of this stuff, and why would you do this?
Is this a comic that still is serialized, Geoff?
Well, yeah. When I was there, I just got the latest one. I was like, wow, I was in Japan when it came out. It's every week in Young Magazine.
Yes.
And it was in 2008 when I was in Japan working that I discovered it. So he's been doing it since 2006, and that's all he's been doing.
So the world has changed a little bit out there in the midst of them actually just getting the Olympics. And they were in the process of cleaning stuff up while I was out there, because they were supposed to get the 2020 Olympics before COVID. And being out there in 2019, none of the manga in the Lawson or the 7-Eleven or the Family Mart was wrapped up, and you could read everything. You could still check stuff out. And my friends were all telling me, like, yeah, they're trying to phase this shit out. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then you go into the Lawson, and there's a fucking Shonen Jump with Luffy on the cover, right? And then right next to it will be some serialized magazine. It would have like a spread of like, one of the few like Japanese models that they could find with some big ass titties, and a photo spread of her naked. And then you go through it, and there's like a manga like this where it's like a super giant like pussy monster that has teeth, and as it moves through the town, it leaves a snail trail, and the big pussy is like eating the citizens of Edo, Tokyo, and that's right next to the Shonen Jump. I'm like, these people, like, they got no filter, man. There's like that real kind of seedy part that I just adore, but they recognize it. So that was like one of the pieces that they were trying to get a little bit more pristine for when, gaijin pop in and are like, what the fuck are you guys doing with all this? So I think that might be, and they just kept the wrappers on shit from that point forward. You can't look at the Shonen Jumps at the Lawson anymore.
Yeah, that comic that you just showed, it's called Higanjima, and it's in this magazine called Young Magazine, which is what Akira was in.
Right.
And that's how I knew it, because I'd look just to see what would be in there, and but it's always got a girl on the cover in a bikini, and they're never naked, but and I was told that depending on the size of the bust of the girl, they sell more when they have a busty girl on the cover.
Yeah, sure.
It's just,
that's universal.
I always feel like, God, here comes the the guy Jin to buy this, thinking it's a skin magazine or something, and I always wanted to say, no, I'm buying it for this crazy vampire monster story in the back.
I feel like another book that we all scooped up out there was that Gango book. Geoff, you said you already had it.
Yes.
So you bought it again?
If you know anybody that wants one, I got an extra one.
So this is an important book to scoop up. It's something that I've seen online for a long time. I think it corresponded almost like a catalog for that Genga show that he did in the 20 teens, where all the pages of Akira were like lined up on those trays in that big building, and there was like the Domu, like the little imprint, it was like on the wall. People could get up and pose with it and shit. This book is important for revolutionizing the future of artist editions. I feel like the approach, because Genga means like original art or something. Like they call their original art Genga, and it's not page for page. We'll do a bigger video on this eventually on the channel, but it'll just be panels sometimes. You know, like the money shot panels of say 5 pages will be stitched together, and you just get a big close up of each of those panels, and it's just beautifully designed. It's such an incredible work, and like if you can't find Kaba or Kaba 2, like this one will serve you well for sure. Mm-hmm. And then another thing, like one of the items that like we were like questing for from day one of being out there, it was like, guys, we got to get our hands on the joint, and I see everybody scooping, so I'll scoop as well. But right as you guys were leaving, December 1st, November 30th, whatever, the new complete Otomo joint came out. Geof, say something.
I'm just going to say, if you need it, go to Amazon, JP. You can order it. It's real easy from Amazon, and you'll get it. I think I got it like 3 days after I got back from Japan.
Sick as hell. B, show it, man. Show the tablets.
So this thing is probably the highlight, because it literally is the day we were leaving, my partner and I. This came out, and we were heartbroken because they pushed it back. What was it? A few days, I guess, guys?
It was supposed to come out. It was supposed to come out December 2nd at first, and then we saw stuff that it was going to be November 30th.
Yeah, and we were excited. We're all going to meet at the store,
right? And get it.
Fell out,
and so it was one of those things where I just Ed found it. And then Geof, you ordered yours, and then I just happened some random bookstore.
Wow!
And I was like, "Do you guys have this?" And they looked it up, and then they took me out the store to another store to help me go get it. And I was like, "Dude, that is like insane."
That was the deal. That was the deal, right? Because it had this release date, but then several people were like, there are these stores, they want that money before anybody. And they will, if they got the book, they're gonna put it out, man. So keep your eyes peeled, whatever. I was out in Akihabara or something, man, doing a little cleanup, and just happened into a spot that had books, probably like the Tsutaya bookstore or whatever it's called. And I showed it off, and it was the day before it's supposed to come out. The dude took me to the joint where the complete Otomos were. They had one left, so I took a picture of that shit. Was like, Bryan, because I know that was your last day in Tokyo. Bryan, I know you had so much business to do. You got to get the bags and shit to the airport, all that mess. Bryan, if you got a second, man, go to a bookstore. Go to the closest one that you can find, man, because like it's out. And let's describe what it is, man. I did some translation on the main page using Google Translate. And as best as I can surmise from the context is that we are looking at the keyframes and some choice cells. These are from the direct personal collection of Katsuhiro Otomo, and it's the keyframes and key drawings from the Akira anime. This is book 1 of 3, so there are going to be 2 other ones coming out. Like this is cuts A and B or something like that. Once again, this will have a bigger episode on the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. But it's like, it's hard to see here, but it's all the key artwork. And then every 10, 20 pages is another animation cell to like kind of break up the scenes. And it is just, I mean, it is a marvelous piece of work. One of the best art books that I scooped up from out of there, man.
I think the importance of it is just, once again, going back to that documentation and actually having this, because we're talking about things that people don't have access to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? that you can actually study now for history. So it's a must have, along with the storyboards for any collector or fan.
Yeah, man. Like a big part.
I wonder if some of those layouts are still in existence, because I don't know how much of that stuff they would hold on to, because back when I was there, in the late 80s, you could find that stuff pretty easily, because I just don't think they could store it all.
Yeah.
Maybe they would now, but back then it was just probably, and the fact that he kept that stuff, and I'm sure there are other people that worked on the film that kept some of it too. I wonder if some of it just is gone. Because,
yeah, totally. I mean, I know that this dude Joe Peacock that got hold of tens of thousands of cells, the background paintings, a bunch of key stuff. The dude hooked me up with a Tetsuo cell, just like as a thank you for helping him put on an art show, and I think he loaned it to the Academy out in Glittertown, so you could go visit all that stuff.
Yeah, I'd say that's when we first met Ed. Actually, we went to that exhibition in Pittsburgh.
Oh, word.
Mm-hmm.
I think I remember, and Bryan, you're the Laserdisc dude, but I seem to remember stories of people telling me that back in the day you would get the Akira Laserdisc and it would have a cell included.
Yeah, I heard that too, and like it's one of my fantasies to like find a sealed Laserdisc of Akira and actually open it and see if that's true or not. Like somebody who doesn't know.
Yeah.
there must be a way to find out. I bet Aki would know.
I've researched that idea for years, and I mean they say it online, but I'm trying to find an actual physical copy that has one in it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's how my dude Peacock got his shit started, by he recognizing that, like, holy fuck, I buy one of these things for $50 and I get a piece of original artwork from the movie. Like, that alone is worth the price, and he was just scooping up laser discs to accumulate the first, chunk of his collection. And then, he had his connections out there in Tokyo and rescued a lot of shit from the trash. Mm-hmm. One of the very telling things, like if my Google Translate on this book is accurate, and if this is stuff from Otomo's personal collection, it's very astonishing to realize that he might not have known how iconic that motorcycle screech moment in the movie is, how much it got riffed on and how just iconic it is, because he doesn't, that is not in here. There's just like 3 or 4 pieces that are the close-up before the side of the bike starts to drift.
Because I know when I was working there, when they talk about, in America, they say scenes.
Yeah.
But over there, they say cuts.
Mm-hmm.
So, they always would say cut A, cut B. Like it even say A part, cut 72, cut 923. Those were the scenes. So maybe, but maybe they'll show up in the other books.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe they're saving it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think so. I think this is, it does say cut 72, but I think that it's going to be, C, D, E, F.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that makes sense. He might not have it, or, or maybe he gave it to somebody, or maybe the guy, I don't know, maybe he didn't do that particular drawing. And
wouldn't it be some bullshit if some of those showed up in the laser disc, like just some Joey Jerkoff got those? Yeah. Some college kid pins it up on his wall.
That's what would happen at Warner Brothers. They would, you work on a movie and, some exec comes in there and he just, loots the stuff, takes it, because they think it's valuable for like a year or two, and then it's like, let's move on to the next thing, and that stuff just ends up in somebody's garage.
One of the things that I actually ordered while out there, me and Bryan were sitting on the train on the way somewhere, and you pointed out that there was a significant discount for that Akira Art of Wall collection, these weird tapestry things. So I ordered this on regular Amazon, and it was at the crib when I got back. It has an Otomo interview in here that answered some key questions that I brought up while researching his work and all that stuff. When me and Bryan were at that Yonazawa museum, we hooked up with this lady, Miss Sheena, who she was actually, she's your translator, Geof, for all of your works in Japan, from Shaolin Cowboy to Hard Boiled. And she said, say hi to Geof. She takes us up to the archive that nobody has access to. It's this Yonazawa guy is the guy who created Comiket, the big doujinshi festival, and he was a reviewer for newspapers and magazines of manga. So his collection is extensive, and it spans, what is it, Bryan, like 3, 4, 5 floors?
Yeah, 3 to 4 floors. Yep.
And just wall to wall. Yeah, wall to wall. And it's, like
from floor to ceiling. Too.
Yeah. So it would be like 2 whole sections of a library would just be like every issue of Shonen Jump from the start to they also buy. So like they've been buying like after his passing also. So like it's very extensive. But Bryan and I were taking a look at Young Magazine with the introductory strip of Akira. Like that's just sitting out in like the regular library.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Now they were very proud of that, and like that's the one that you could touch. But they were like, look, we got this one too, and they like go from the archive and show like the pristine joint.
Right.
But the original 2-page spread that introduces the strip is this digital like weather map photo of like Neo Tokyo with the sort of red areas of nuclear heat or whatever. And that is not in the tankobon. It's the actual painting that we have in our books. So like on that page 1, it's this pixelated giant image. And I was like, did this motherfucker paint every single square of that pixelation? Did he, come up with millimeter like grids and just fucking paint by numbered that? Like, what did this guy do? Like, it's answered in that Art of Wall interview.
Oh, really?
Yes. Like,
what's the answer, dude?
It was, he took a photograph of it, and there was a mosaic filter that could be applied to the photo. So he did the painting, and then he did this mosaic photo, because he answered some other stuff too. Like if you have the, and it might be on the back, like if I think, Bryan, I see the Akira box set from Kodansha behind you. The back of book 3 is like racehorses running by, and you see the image of the front image of the cover is like on the back. Like that was the biggest TV screen in Tokyo. It was at this racetrack. It was like the first time they built such a big television. And he's a photographer by hobby, and like he wanted that on the back cover. Because there was that one comic called Farewell to Weapons.
Yeah.
And if you take a look at some panels of that, there are like 3 or 4 different versions of this comic that I have. One is the Marvel Epic one, and it does not have what I'm about to describe. But in the original tankobon, Farewell to Weapons, there are these parts where there are these like mech dudes shooting each other, and the panels have that interlace of like a cathode ray tube television. And you're like, what the how do you do that shit, And he literally like did the artwork, colored the artwork, took a picture of it to put it onto a screen on just like a regular television. And so like the panel that you see in those tankobon, when you see the interlaced lines, it's actually a photograph of the screen that gets pasted onto the artwork. So he was very experimental for what those guys were able to do in terms of production values and things. And that comes up in the interview a lot, because like you guys, one of the things this past trip out there, it made me respect the comic book format that we have here in the States. And it was Otomo who made me respect it while we were out there, because I'm like, you know what? There never was a 6x9, collections of Akira. Like, can you imagine a blasphemy of such a thing? Like, we have to accept this super tiny Domu that we got here in the States. But could you imagine a 6x9 Akira? Like, that would just lose all the piss and vinegar, And so, like, that's in the Art of Wall interview where Otomo is like, what happened was people were collecting the episodes like you did, Geof, right? You collected the serialized Akira episodes as they came out in Young Magazine, if I remember correctly, right?
Right.
So people were doing that, And then they were making doujinshis of those collections because it was a long time before the first collection came out because Otomo was he wanted it precise. And he was winning awards based on these fan-made bootleg fucking collections that were the same size as the magazines. Because, like, when they put out their magazines, it's comic book size, pretty much. You know, this is the size of their magazines. You know, that's basically comic book size. So he was getting dummies back for the forthcoming Tenkobon of Akira, and they were showing him dummies that were comic size. And he was like, well, I want it this size. Like, let's just do it this way. And they were like, oh, that's too big, yada, yada. He's like, nah. Like, he just dragged his feet. Then when he started winning awards, they were like, all right. He's like, we're losing money already because people are buying these bootleg shits. Like, we'll put it out at that size. And then he's like, well, I want the color blocking on the paper. It's all got to be yellow. Like, you know, because if you see the sets, it's like yellow, blue, like the gilding or whatever is all different color. Like, he was just getting everything he could, man. And he was speaking about this kind of circles back to that Arale Chan Dr. Slump licensing thing that you brought up, Geoff, because he said you know, during that there was a boom in the 80s in the Japanese economy, and they were just able to license things to death because everybody had a lot of money and could just buy a lot of stuff. So, like, he gets into the discussions about that stuff in there. It's a very, very good, probably one of the most comprehensive interviews that answered specific questions that I've had, that I've read from Otomo, probably ever, to be honest. It's not a very big interview, but it's kind of worth you know, checking out once or twice. If you don't want to put that money down, go visit a friend and read it.
I'm not familiar with that. What is that?
So they were putting this building up in Shibuya in 2018, 2019. And you know how, like, around to sort of safeguard the property, there would just be like the big wooden walls. Yeah. So instead of just doing like a big ugly wall, because 2019, Neo Tokyo, that's when the shit goes down. The 2020 Olympics are happening in Akira. Like, it was like serendipitous. So they created these three giant murals that would just go around the perimeter of this building that was being erected in Shibuya to take place of those big construction walls. And so this is just like a documentation, a tapestry of, you know, these are long as fuck. Like, I don't think I'll ever have a space big enough to open it. But then after the building was built, I think there was a gallery space component to it or something, or just to sort of ring in the new building on that first floor. And I fucking missed it by a week. I was so pissed off because I come back home after a month of being in Tokyo, and then Jim Mahfood is like, dude, I'm about to go out to Tokyo for the Comic-Con. And I was like, dude, you got to go to Shibuya. You got to see the Art of Wall exhibit, because they did the whole exhibit space, and they had the Akira chair with the red cloak, and fucking Jim Mahfood has that picture with the red Akira cloak with the fluorescent Akira light behind him and shit. And I'm like, I missed it by a week.
So Ed, with that book, are those scans like the Ginga, or are those just from the comic print?
Yeah, it's a collage that was made from the illustrations from the comic. So there are two credits. Obviously Otomo, but then there's an interview with the guy who does the collage piece.
Okay, cool.
I did not read that yet, but I haven't been home for 5 days.
Right.
The Otomo part was the most important, and bang for buck, like, I was so happy to get that. I almost got it just out in Tokyo once again because that yen is so cheap, you know.
Yeah,
but then when you hit me to that it was like so cheap on Amazon, at least for that minute. Like, right. Fuck it, dude. I want that interview real bad. Mm-hmm. And I would have paid for that interview at any price, man, for sure. Trying to think, because there's some stuff that, okay, yeah, we went to, so Geoff, man, we did Tokyo Comic-Con when we were out there, and it was one of those things that happened just serendipitously. We booked our trip, and we're going to be out there while the con was going on, and they offered us tables. You know, Peach and Yo hit me up, We might be able to get you a table. Aki hit me up. Hey, we might be able to get you a table. Cool. You know, I hit you up because like the thought was, man, it's gonna be 2 weeks into my trip. I know I'm gonna go hard as fuck and just be on my feet for those 2 weeks. Would probably be nice at the middle of the trip to sit my ass down for a couple of days, share a table with Uncle Geof, fucking pull his coat all day, man. Geof, how do you draw this? How do you draw that? How do you draw this? We get there and they actually like give us our own spaces, so we were split up a little bit, and it was like COVID restrictions, all that kind of thing. So like the tables weren't anywhere close to one another. But what a journey, huh?
We put sand into the machine.
It was a journey. So they gave us the table, and it was only a day before, 2 days before, when I realized like this venue, it's called Tokyo Comic-Con, but it's like the furthest outer parts of Tokyo or something that you could get. It takes like more than an hour to get there. You gotta take a couple of trains, and then there was like the added pressure of like Japanese rule set, right? If you don't show up by 9:30, like the doors are closed to you or something, as an exhibitor. So we're like,
you have to get in line with everybody else.
oh,
and
geez.
just go through the whole thing.
Right.
Back.
So you'd be losing money and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So being punctual cartoonists, and we're on vacation, kind of, you know, got to get our asses up at like five in the morning to go hit the train at like 6 to like hopefully, you know, get close to the spot to be there early enough to meet the guy who's going to show us the ropes of like how to get to the COVID part, to show off our little badge, all that stuff, man. So it was like not easy, but being up that early and hitting the train, that was the time where I saw the thing that everybody, that you read about in the books, where I saw the salarymen with paper manga reading on their way to work, man. And that shit made me feel kind of cool. Like the younger salarymen, the kohais to the senpais, they were reading that shit digitally on their phone. But it was so much comic reading that it made it all okay to be up that early. It was the first time I felt like a working man, like in 25 years, I think, man. Like getting up and commuting to the job.
And I will say, if you want to have access and watch a genius at work, Peach Momoko, go to Comic-Con if you're a huge fan of hers, because you would have access, because it was amazing how little of a line there was for her. She was always busy.
Yeah.
But there was never, you know, what, from what I understand, went on in New York.
Right.
And you could stand there and you could watch her do her watercolors, which I did from time to time. And, you know, you could get paid and get a beautiful, beautiful drawing in your book. So if you're a big Peach Momoko fan, do Comic-Con. I'm sure she'll do it next year too.
Yeah, it's like the hometown fest for her, man.
It was great to just have access to her like that. If you're
right. Like Geof, we should talk about we took before Comic-Con, we took that trip out to go visit Peach and Yo.
Yeah.
And it's like to go to Comic-Con was like this way on the train for like an hour. Yeah. And like we went to go visit Peach and Yo, and it was like an hour that way on the train out into the cut, you know, straight up like the burbs.
Yeah.
I think it was outside of Tokyo. A place called Kumagaya.
And we get off the train, and her partner or husband Yo took us to this great sporting goods manga not comic but toy shop. It was the craziest. You know, you had the games, and the ranks of the games, they had like trout fishing gear,
and then they had like dildos and shit. Like here's like the dildo section and like lingerie, but then you go through that to buy Switch games. Yeah. And I guess the wrappers on everything, because that's the thing, man. When you go into Tokyo and you go into the comic shops, you can't look at shit. It's all wrapped up in plastic. But like those rules don't exist out there in the cut. so you can look through stuff, and the price is significantly cheaper on things because obviously everybody knows Nakano Broadway Mall, so they're gonna price accordingly. And I came out with some cool shit, man. I got some weird baseball mangas while we were at that store. It also had a giant gachapon
Yeah, which is
section on
why
the ground floor.
I love those things, and you can get the change, and they had most of the available ones they had there. And,
Did you get any cool gachapons while you were out there, Jeff?
yeah, I did. Here's one that I got that I was going to show. This is a gashapon of a turtle, which is great for drawing because I think it was made by Kyoto or Bandai, but it moves, and for drawing you can move the legs, and it goes back inside its shell. That's like about $4 for this thing.
Yeah, it's so beautifully constructed.
Good reference piece.
Yeah, and they may do things. Here's another one I got. There's just like an eagle or a falcon, and you put it together, and it's all there. I mean, you can see the structure of the wings and how the legs form to the body, and and those are all gashapons.
So cool, man. I don't really fuck with that stuff too much, but being a Kinnikuman fan, there was
Nice.
a set of like Kinnikuman models. So it would be like one of those premium gachapons that cost like 500 yen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you get the bag, and it's like,
Yeah.
over 100 pieces
Yeah.
to put together like a movable
Wow, that's actually insane, Ed.
Terry
They're
man.
they're not always easy to put together because the little joints, you have to use like a hair dryer sometimes to warm up the plastic so they'll fit in. It's yeah, because I was in in Shinjuku. Well, there's a chain in Tokyo called Big Camera,
Yes.
and I just happened to go in there, and they had a whole Gashaban capsule section. I mean, God, there must have been 100 of those vending things, and they had like peanuts.
Ooh.
And I thought, these are neat. They had Linus and Snoopy and Charlie Brown, and I put my coin in there, and I get a piece out, and it's just like the head of Charlie Brown. I thought, oh no, so you got to like put it in there to get the body and but being a genius, I never realized as soon as I got it home, because I would have bought a bunch more of them because they were so cool. But it's just you open up the head and all the other pieces are inside Charlie Brown's head, and you can construct this beautiful figure of Charlie Brown.
I thought it was really interesting that they license like the 1950 Charlie Brown out there a lot.
Yeah,
Like the proto Snoopy and the proto Charlie Brown, like
I bought one of those. Yeah.
super fascinating, man. I went to get my Kinnikuman guys because like every time I would find the machine, it would be dry, like because they would have it in the strategic spots where there would be otaku people around. But there was a place called Sunshine City Mall in Ikebukuro, and it on the third floor there is what they call like it's the biggest gashapon store that has over 3,000 of these machines, man. And they had 2 full Kinnikuman joints, and I was like, I'll pay any price to just. There are 4 dudes, but there are also 2 different colors. Like there's the gray and the pink, and I'm just like, I want the 4 dudes. Like I don't care about the colors and all that stuff, and I just had to spend like an extra 500, like so I got 1 straggler, so they're sprinkled in a nice amount so that you don't, there's no chase guy that's like, there's only 1 Terry man in a box or something.
They used to have, because if you went into, because they have the convenience stores everywhere, they would have those. They would have not the capsule things, but they're like in boxes. It's the same kind of thing. And Kyoto did a lot of those, and they did like a whole series on Kurosawa, on the 7 Samurai, and you could get these beautifully sculpted tiny figures of Jimbo and Sanjuro, and then all the 7 Samurai. And I've got them all. I got like cases of these things because friends kept sending me a whole box case. But you used to be able to go into the Lawson's or 7-Eleven and I noticed this time they don't have hardly any of that stuff anymore. I was wondering if it had to do with COVID or maybe just that whole thing is over with now. They prefer the capsule to it.
Yeah, I don't remember them being in there in 2019. But one of the nights we were out there, we went to a museum in the town of Ueno, Ueno, however you say that. And it made me understand the pop culture of Japan so much better because you're looking at sculptures and things from, you know, the 11th century. And there's a whole section of sculptures that are this big. You know, they might as well be gashapons, you know, back starting in like the 1100s, and it'll be you know, the people of the town, you know, kicking a ball, playing soccer or whatever. But there's that, and you also realize that, you know, drawing, which is frowned upon in like American art schools and you know, fine art establishments, like the drawing culture in Japan is so deep. It goes back so far. And I'm not talking about painting or just like representing stuff with paint. I'm talking about ink on paper, fucking drawing of cool shit like dragons and dudes fighting big monsters and junk like that. Like, they've been making manga since before Hokusai called his shit manga, man. And that, and, you know, that shit fascinated me so much. But Geof, we went out to go visit Peach and Yo, get to their studio. When he's taking us to those places, like, I was trying to get a sense of him. Yo, man, like, you know, do you collect stuff? Like, do you read manga, whatever? And his thing was like ray guns. He's like, yeah, like I like ray guns, like Buck Rogers guns and shit. And then when we like get back to their crib, he's like, no, you know what? You know how I said I like collect ray guns and stuff? He's like, I think I collect real estate because I own these 4 homes right here. And it was like the cribs were like right next door to their house and shit. And he's like, yeah, and this house is going to be the studio, and this house we're going to move her parents there. Like this whole thing, man. And I'm like, these are some baller motherfuckers, dude. Yeah. They're super fly. Going to their spot, beautiful home. The studio that you saw in the shoot interview, we were there. We went up there, man, and we got to see Peach's space on the ground, sort of laid up on the side is maybe 30 portfolio books of her original art, and they just yanked them all out in a big pile. They're just like, yeah, check them out, man.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, check it out. And the way she would set it up was the pencil sketch, the name of Nemu of her comic page will be on the left side, and then the finished piece would be on the right. So you could see all the decision making that she's doing, all the stuff that the editors wanted to change, or that her tastes varied and she wanted to change. You get to see how those sketches like translated into the final piece, and you have access to the woman. So when you have a question, you just ask and you get the information. It was fascinating stuff. There were the earlier works. She's putting a lot of effort into the name sketch part of it, and the corresponding artwork looks stunning. But then she starts getting looser with the sketches. Like, as things progress in her comfort levels start to get there, she's chilling with the sketches and doing more work in the paint. And we were talking about that stuff, and it was that same old story that you always hear, that you probably have dealt with yourself, man, where you try to harness some of that energy from your sketch into the final piece. And that was her strategy. She was like having so much trouble with that. She said, you and I would never know. The reader would never know. But she wanted to try to harness that same energy. Still look good to me. But she found that if she just did like rougher sketches, it would save more energy for the final piece. And like that's like the strategy now. But we got to see all that stuff, dude, in living color. Unbelievable. And then they have that little dog. And we were real nervous because she, like, some of the art was not in sleeves.
Jesus, yeah.
And Peach and Yo were like, I forget what the dog's name was. Do you remember, Geof?
No, it wasn't Mimo or
yeah, like Mummy or something like that. And they're like, if, you know, insert dog's name here. If the dog steps in his water dish and steps on the paper, that's now the artwork. Like they're just totally like, the dog can do whatever. This is our baby.
He's wearing that little red sweater. Just a really sweet dog. It wasn't an annoying dog. It was it liked attention, but it wasn't like, like those like little ladies having, just dancing around your feet and being annoying. It was just it was a funny dog.
Yeah, yeah, but they
But
were
she
like,
had, yeah. At one point, I asked her because I was curious. You guys too. What is something you don't like to draw?
right,
Really? And she said, which really surprised me, I thought she's going to say mechanical stuff or cars, or she said it was like the nature backgrounds, trees and stuff. And I was like, Jesus, you know, because I said to her, I said, you can't tell because they're so lush. They look really well formed and beautiful. I was like, well, you certainly hide your.
it's the opposite of like the Eric Larson thing of like, I fucking hate drawing cars, so I'll never put a car in my comics. Like,
Yeah, I know.
because she has lots of lush nature stuff, so she's drawing the
Yeah,
stuff that she hates.
yeah, yeah, and it has, like as I said to her, her watercolors. I don't know if this is a term I learned. Are juicy. The
Mm.
color is so. They kind of look like you could lick them and you get like a lollipop. You get some kind of a taste off them. They're just so. And she said they were just so sweet and giving and generous. No pretension. No, they weren't full of themselves. I mean, she's really at the top of, you know, the ticket in terms of Marvel and in general. And it's nice to see someone that has so much talent and it doesn't have, so many people with so much less talent with such enormous egos.
Yeah, it's real. She's in good hands too with Yo, because like he has some of that streetwise from the States. Dude was born in like Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah.
And so he's got like an understanding of just like the culture in America. So he has a good enough point of view of like kind of the bullshit of their system in a lot of ways, man. With the senpai kohai shit and how you got to be forced to go to drinking parties and you got to be forced to drink if your elder at the office like wants you to, and just all that nonsense. And they slough that off. They have tattoos and shit, and they're fucking punk rock. They took us to that joint to eat afterward.
Yeah, that was nice.
And it was like one of those like Korean barbecue joints where you just got that little grill at the table and you get all kinds of meats. And I don't know if you noticed it while we were sitting there, Geof, but I certainly did. Where like 100% of the people working there were just staring at us the whole time.
I noticed that the people that came in to eat there were all workers. They're like truck drivers or construction workers. And I like that. That's sort of like, yeah, this isn't, because I was taken to a fancy place to eat at the top of the Tokyo Dome Hotel, and it wasn't anywhere near as good as that place. And you had that feeling of, But then we came out, they gave, you tell them.
The lady was, the proprietor, I guess the owner was a lady, and they were so taken aback. It was the first time that they ever had gaijin in the restaurant that they know of, like maybe there was like Korean people or something that aren't as obvious, but it was like the first time that they ever had foreigners like in the restaurant ever. And she wanted to give us these like totems of goodwill and good luck, and gave one to each of us, man, which was extra sweet. And it broke the ice a little bit because like, there are those places, and that would have been one of those places. Even the numbers were in their language, you know what I mean? Like you couldn't, no English menus there. And if you accidentally wander into those places in Tokyo proper, like they'll let you know. They'll go like this, say no gaijin. And you could tell that was probably that kind of joint. And it could just be like they don't want the hassle of like trying to communicate with you and like, the hassle of all that. So you could tell that was probably like one of those spots, but they'll take your money. It's just like, get somebody else to order for you. So they hooked us up with that. Did you try the tongue, Geof?
I did. It was fine. It wasn't my favorite.
It was like a piece of ham. But that was super fresh. Real great kicking it with Peach and Yo. But then, like the next couple days later, we're at that Comic-Con. And separated by our table, so we didn't have that chance to like talk that much the first day. And what would happen is there's the culture. nobody wants to be like arouse too much attention. So I don't know about you, Geoff, but like it would be barren for me until the first person had the balls to come up. And usually it would be gaijin. It would be somebody who knows our work pretty well, could speak English really well, or at least likes the work enough to break the ice in that way. And then as soon as the first person would come, now the line forms. Like nobody wants to be the first person in the line. So I want to give shouts to some of the Kayfabe audience out there who came rocking their shirts, who were the icebreakers, because whether they know it or not, they helped my bottom line a lot by kind of cracking that ice, coming up, chatting a little bit, and making people feel more comfortable getting in line to grab some stuff, man. I just brought 2 prints. I was taking it real easy. Brought 2 prints and sold plenty of them, man. I still got lots of yen to use when I go over there next time, man. But that was how it worked for me, Geoff.
But I found that to be true even in American shows. If I'd have stuff out and almost like chumming the water, like one person could, if there's no one wants to be the first one, because they think, well, what if I don't like this stuff? Or maybe they're like, I don't feel some kind of obligation. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, Bryan, but you get one person and they feel like they can come and like look over that person's shoulder and not be committed to actually engaging with the person behind the table. So they can, and then, oh, yeah, I guess this isn't as crappy as I thought it was going to be. And then they might buy something. And what do you think, Bryan?
Yeah, it actually happens to me all the time, to a point of where I don't sit at my tables. I have my fiance sit at my table for me, and I just sit somewhere else or walk around, because it's just like they're never going to approach. The same thing happens all the time.
It very often happens too, like when it's like, you know what, man, I just have to pee now. So you get up and split. And then when you come back, now you got the crowd around the table and stuff. Bryan,
Japan is also one of the places in the world where you can like, I wasn't worried if I left my phone on the table or anything at that table and go to the bathroom, because if anybody's going to steal something over there, it's not going to be somebody who's Japanese.
Yeah, it's true. And it's funny because like I had the layover in O'Hare, Chicago O'Hare. And a significant layover, you know, because you need to build in that time. You got to go from Terminal 5 back to Gen Pop and go through security again and all that shit. So you need to build a lot of time in. And then back in Chicago, back in the airport there, I'm like, oh yeah, now like I can start worrying about getting pickpocketed and like, you know, shit like that.
Because that radar back up.
Exactly. Start to get a little more defensive, a little bit more wary. Realize and you know, like when you land, like people out there were so helpful to me with everything I needed to get back to the airport, to find my bags, to check my bags, like all of that stuff. And when we land and we're going through customs in Chicago, there was this Japanese dude who our plane left a little late, so his plane was boarding while we were going through customs, and like they were not helping him out at all and being dicks. Oh yeah, I see that. Stay in line, like giving him no help. And I'm just like, man, like the grace that I was shown out there and the patience that I was given out there, like TSA is trash here, man. Like just utter garbage. Like it was so disrespectful to see, and it just made me feel terrible for a lot of these people, because also it's like it's just that lack of empathy, because it's a long trip, you know. It's shorter going back home than it is going out there, but you're still, you know, this is maybe 17 hours into our travel, and now we gotta do a whole new round of stuff, so we're fucked up and out of our minds, and to be treated like with disrespect, that could go sideways, you know. Like if you got 2 cranky people, now you got problems. And obviously this Japanese dude wasn't gonna start being a scoundrel, but I knew I was back in America pretty instantly from that trip, man. But on the second day of the Tokyo Comic-Con, because we were split up a lot for most of the day, me and Geoff were just like, you know what? Fuck it, dude. Let's share this table. and kick it. And that's when Adi Granov showed up on Saturday. So like I just took my little name plaque off of my thing, went over to the Geof's, split the table, and then it created a lot of conversation. Like the workers at the Comic-Con were on their phones, walkie-talkies. Like 4 or 5 Comic-Con workers were there, like looking at us, looking at the bear table over yonder and stuff, and just like totally beside themselves. But it worked out, man, because Adi came just that one day and is very popular out there. So they were able to use that space to just kind of corral his line. And speaking with him, he said that like that's the move out there, man. Like that, he said that same amount of people would have still, if I would have been here all 3 days, that exact same amount of people would have been here to see me. So it would have just been sprinkled throughout 3 whole days. And I think that'll be the move like next year, to do the Adi move. Get a table for 1 day, and then just meet all your people at once. Cause like, you know, it left a lot of time for homeboy to see the sights and go do his thing. But that all worked out.
That long trip out there, then then it's the long trip back, and it's 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. And,
yeah. Like the only, like, so we get up at like 5, start heading out at 6, get there early enough to not fucking get the door closed in our faces. No breakfast or anything. So it's like you got to go out and eat the truck food or whatever. I don't know how long the convention would go on. But we made the decision, like, you know what? Like, if we leave now, we'll get home by 8, be able to get something to eat, and go right to sleep because we've been up for so long. So that first day was that. It was just like, let's take that hour-long train back. Hour and a half long train, I feel like, because it's like a couple trains.
Yeah, it was.
And then just have time to eat, take a shower, get right into bed to get up at like 5 the next day. Super crazy that through all of that, I stayed in Shibuya. Geof, Darrow, you stayed in Shinjuku. And we were still in touch that morning while we were heading out on Saturday.
That second day.
Yeah. And just kind of keeping in touch. Okay, I'm on my second train. And then, you know, you're on the second train. I'm about to get on my second train. We had, where the convention was, it was out past Disneyland. Yeah. And you have to catch some tricky trains to get there, because the train that you pop on turns into something else after a couple of stops. So you have to like catch the exact right timed one. You have to pay attention to the signs, because every other one will be that train that turns into the R line or whatever. It's a bitch. So like after all of that, I guess the train like hits your area in Shinjuku first, and then comes through Shibuya, all that. So I take my first train out to the middle of fucking nowhere, and then I got to catch that train that is going out to and past Disneyland, and everything up until Disneyland is just fucking. It's the only time you see Japanese people get mean or aggressive, because they will push onto that train. That like maternal, beautiful little old grandma. She's getting on that train, hell or high water, and she's gonna make sure her ass cheeks don't get clapped by that door. So she's pushing in, and somehow you're all finding that there really is more and more space on this train, because every stop there's just more bodies pushing in, and you're just squeezing up against a ton of people. But then it gets to Disneyland, and all these people with their like Mickey Mouse ears and their little white gloves and shit are all, in Donald Duck umbrellas, are all spilling off. And then I see Uncle Geof sitting on the bench, man, like in the same exact train car.
I was texting you saying, what stop are you at now? He said, well, so am I. And I look up, and there you are. Well, that was very odd.
Yeah, because
it probably seems goofy to everybody listening to this, but if you're in Tokyo, and Bryan, I'm sure you're going to agree, there's so many people. The chances of you being on the same train, I mean, it's of course they're lower because there's just a number of cars. But at that time, because there's so many trains, they leave like the trains there, it's like they leave at 6:17 or 6:13.
Yeah, it's very precise.
And it's exact.
Yeah.
And it's always like, well, it's the express, which means, what does that mean? And it means, oh, it skips so many stops. So then you're worried, well, maybe it skips my stop.
Right.
But
yeah, but that was fun. Like to kind of connect with you at that level, because then we could just head over to the deli to get all our breads and stuff to eat throughout the day as we do our Comic-Con stuff. But we agreed, like, you know what, man, it's Saturday, because it was a 3-day show. Like, ain't coming back Sunday. Like, got plenty in. It was fun. Shouts to Seiya. Shouts to Aki for being a go-between to talk with the customers, talk with the people, to help us hustle our wares and stuff. The huge
the
helps.
level of cosplay at that show is quite astonishing. And I'm not a cosplay guy, but these guys don't mess around, man.
No, that's for sure, man.
Those are movie quality costumes all those people made.
Yeah. They did the thing too, where like when they open it up for the day to the public, there are like 2 rows of cosplayers greeting the customers that come in. So they like allow a bunch of cosplayers in, and they had whole wings behind the scenes where you could like change your clothes and shit. Cause like that's what I was hoping, like that we would see like some Doctor Stranges on a train and shit, but they're not gonna arouse attention like that.
They used to do that at Harajuku when I went there in the 80s, because they would at Harajuku they'd have bands. They would come in and play, and it was really crazy because you'd have like a rockabilly band next to a folk band next, and they're all playing at once. So it's kind of a cacophony. But so the kids that would come and they're rockabilly or they're punk, they come like in their their school uniform, and then they'd come in groups, and they would take blankets and they would make like in the middle like a changing room, and they'd take their turns being in the middle, and they'd take their clothes off, and they'd come out looking like a punk girl or a Elvis Presley kind of guy.
Yeah, I remember seeing those dudes with the they would have like the leather jackets, the big pompadour, and those like super pointy like boots, and do that weird like dance thing with the legs, like a weird shimmy thing. But on Sunday we were like, you know what, let's go do our own thing, man. This is a vacation. So I went to like I didn't go to Tokyo Comic Con, but I went to this joint called Comitia, and it was a convention of original doujinshis. And this is the transformative experience out there, guys, because first off, I had to catch the same train that went out to the far depths for our Tokyo Comic Con, because this was at the Tokyo Big Site. And to explain what this doujinshi festival, which there's not any real pros there, it's just regular people who make comics. It's an independent comic show basically for regular folk who might not even have aspirations to be professional mangakas ever. It is the size of, say, 2 WonderCons on top of each other. It's an entire bottom floor of an extremely huge convention center, and then there's a second floor of that. And it was such a process to figure that part out. Like it's free, but you have to buy the $15 book to get through. There's all these weird rules, because there's even more rules with Comiket, which is the one that has like the Dragon Ball porno comics and shit, because it's copywritten material, so they can't sell it to you, but you donate 300 yen to them to cover the print. There's like all these like gray zone fucking rules. So you got to buy the book, and then in the back of the book you put your name and your phone number and like email address. So it's like you're giving them that, and they're just adding that to a mailing list, which is like indispensable and priceless. So that's just genius. Something that Comic-Cons don't do. You go through the COVID checks, all of that. Then you get your badge. Now you're in the joint. No pictures. You can't take any photos of stuff because of their copyright laws are like so kind of strict. But this convention let me know, it just showed me all the deficiencies of what we have in our shows and stuff here. Out in the main concourse of this convention, was every important. So like the leader had a big booth out in the main concourse. Copic had a big section where they were hustling stuff. There are there are printing plants that only do doujinshi. Wow. And there are like 4 or 5 of those companies set up with tons of samples of all the kind of paper stocks and all the kinds of book sizes and shit that they can make, and the prices, so that all the mangaka who have their books, like, they can choose their printer or just think in terms of format and stuff. That was all set up. You go through to the main part, and every major publisher, from Kodansha to Shueisha to Shogakukan and beyond, have entire rows for each one of their magazines is a booth. And there are 2 editors from each of the magazines under that publisher's umbrella there to just interact with future mangaka, people who want to show samples the whole time. So like there's a Shonen Jump editor, there's like a Shoujo Beat editor, there's, you know, Young Magazine, like the editor of all your favorite magazines are taking the day to be there to look for new enterprising new talents. I would say that like each floor would be in like 6th chunks. So like there would be like 6 sections to make up a quadrant. And there were like, say, you know, 4 big sections of this festival. So like one quadrant would be, you know how they're so reference heavy in terms of backgrounds and stuff. There would be like a quadrant that would be royalty free reference materials.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it would be like, you know, this booth, you could buy building interiors, like offices, schools, factories, like just whatever you want. This one is weapons. This one is nature. You know, this is Edo Tokyo booth where you could buy, you know, a bunch of screenshots of, you know, Edo Tokyo era structures. Just all this like super fucking crazy helpful shit to just create, like, that's how you have these manga assassins, you know? Because it's like all there and it's all easy to get. It's all represented under this one roof. And then when you get to the actual comic people, no exaggeration, 85% of the creators were females, maybe 90, maybe 90.
What was your reaction to that, Ed, just in general?
What's that?
I said, what was your reaction to that in general, like learning that?
I noticed it, you know, yeah. Like I noticed it for sure. Mm-hmm. I thought it was cool, you know, like, but so much of it was, I think it was all professional looking. Mm-hmm. I looked at everything. I think it was all professional looking, but there was a generic blandness to so much of it. It would be professional looking in the same way that there are these like kind of off-brand American publishers that might have like a line of books. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know the name of these things, but like it would be professional at that level where it's like it's out there, but like maybe not so interesting or whatever.
Yeah.
I bought every wild-looking thing that I felt comfortable bringing back to the country because the culture's fucked up out there when it comes to some of this shit.
That girl one you showed me, that girl manga, you know which one I mean?
The one with the panties?
The panties one. It's just, oh my God.
We'll do a bigger video of my spoils from that show. This is the one that Geof is talking about.
Oh my God.
Yeah, this is it.
How many copies would they have to sell? I thought it was going to be like a pamphlet because you just showed me a couple images. I thought it was like a Xerox kind of a thing.
Yeah, no, this is 1,600 yen for a perfect bound,
wow.
Big book. And we'll look at all this stuff better.
I wonder if the title of that is embarrassing things for girls.
It's called Class X, and this is the piece that Geof is talking about with the student body taking a look at a girl's panties.
The wind blows her skirt up. It's just, and the drawings are so beautifully naive. It's just fantastic.
I'll do bigger. Me and Jimmy will do a bigger episode showing off the Comitia halls. There's one regret that I didn't grab, and it's a regret because I keep thinking about it. It was a lady created this bestiary of like kaiju, but they're based on sushi in a way. So like imagine like the profile of like a sushi, of like a salmon sushi, like sitting on top of a bed of rice. So like the white part, like the color schemes would be sushi like. So like it'd be this orange monster that had like this white undercarriage, and the rice would be kind of like this chunky fur. So hard to explain, but like it would just be these sushi, the sushi with the salmon roe. Like it would have like this like shield on its back, and it would have the red ball orbs of, and it would be salmon roe. So like I regret that one.
Why didn't you take that one? Just because
my bag was just getting heavy. My bag was just getting heavy, man, because I was just buying all the wild stuff, and I just couldn't carry anymore at a certain point. There were one of them that like was exceptionally drawn, but I just couldn't buy it to like for fear of getting arrested or something on the way back home. Was this one lady, and everybody's representing their own comic. They have their little table space, and they have their one or two comics at their table, so you're seeing the person who made the comic. And in Tokyo proper, I think you guys could agree, everybody's fly. Everybody's so well dressed. Their hair is all fresh. Everybody smells real good. It was this lady. She was kind of unkempt and shit. Kind of ratty hair and stuff. Can't look up. Like it's just like looking straight down, like an oversized sweater. And she made this fucking amazing looking comic, but it was amputee porn. So there's like legless, armless people like sucking dicks and stuff. And just like one of the female characters, like she just doesn't have enough of a bump of titty for me to feel comfortable. So like because I can't read it. So I don't know if she's like 10 or 30, I have no idea. So that was like a dicey one, man. But it was like so beautifully drawn. There was no less than 3 mangaka out there, females, who made like cannibalism manga where the main protagonist is like eating their lover. I think that was like the name of one of the things, is like I ate my lover, or so I ate my lover. Didn't grab any of those. I'll show off.
Maybe I asked this, but how many copies would they have to sell?
I think.
Did you notice?
I think that at max, like you would get like 1,000. And I'm not saying that they would sell 1,000 there that day, but most Ojinshi printers, I think, do about 1,000 copies.
I'm just thinking in terms of transporting that stuff, because going to conventions, you always think of, we're gonna take books because gosh, they're so heavy, and
yeah,
the regular American comics not so bad, but those things would be, man, you get 50 of those and you've got a load.
Yeah, totally. Like all the mangaka, they had those like pullable luggages behind them, so they probably just grab enough to fit into there. And when they would sell out, what they would do is collapse their folding chair and just like lay it on top of the table. Because beyond just the manga, like they all had their own tablecloth, and they all had their own like presentation materials too. So like, and it's all prim and proper. There are still rules to that shit. Like there's the one copy that's the sample copy that you're allowed to look at. Don't touch the other ones. Like just that anal retention, hardcore.
You want to talk about the, what was it, about how well those sold though? Because you would come up there to the spaces and they were sold out, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So like they would try to sequester. I guess whenever you're putting in for for a table, there's a bunch of check marks of like they narrow you down to genre or style or something. So they would have those like sections, like aisles that would all be maybe travel logs, horror, gekiga, whatever. And throughout that, there would be people who sold out, put their tables up, their chairs up, or whatever. And in the back, it takes the longest route. Like, you go in, and it has such a natural flow to it. And then you get to the second floor. And basically, if you check out everything and you follow the natural order, the very last section you get to is hentai. And when you get to that section, like I went an hour after the show began. And we got to the hentai, I guess maybe 2 hours after the show opened. You know, spent an hour, probably longer, maybe 3 hours I spent going through everything. When you get to the hentai section, it is a fucking wasteland, because that is the shit that sells first. Like, that's the, like there are fans of specific artists out there that people connect with online, whatever, but those guys all sold out before anybody. So like that whole section is just a wasteland, except for a sporadic cartoonist just sitting there, you know, and who knows what the fuck they're hustling. Because that's the other thing. I saw some shit out there, you guys. And you know, it's the cartoonist who's hustling their works. So there was this like little old man that had a comic that was like a porn with babies, with like that were diapers, and it wasn't even in hentai shit. It was in like Gen Pop with like just like other people making cute things, and I'm like, I'm looking at a pedophile. Like this dude's a fucking pedophile, and he's amongst all these people with this like little diaper porn. And I was telling my dudes like, man, it would be cool to set up at the show sometime or whatever. And they were like, yeah, Red Room, man. Like, you know, we have a lot of rules at our show. And I'm like, what? Red Room can't be here? But that fucking guy, I want to kick that guy's teeth in.
Exactly.
I want to kick that dude in his mouth. He's cool, but like Red Room can't be here? Like that was just like another one of those weird Japanese rules, you know?
I would hear, because I would say, well, when I was working over there, and I'd say, gosh, you know, I in the store, and right next to the Dragon Ball things, they'd have these mangas that were, you know, kid rape stuff. And they would say, how can they get away? He goes, well, because it's cute. I don't think it's cute, but yeah, but the drawings are cute, and maybe that's part of it too. It's like, well, whereas you're drawing this horrible, you know, imagery, to them that's not horrible because it's drawn in a cute way. I guess they figure that that's okay, which is just fucked up beyond belief.
Yeah, and the dude wasn't even put with the porno people. You know, the dude was just like with regular. Like it might have been a schoolgirl manga like right next to him that was just legit shoujo comic. Mm-hmm. But like to see that dude, I'm just like I'll never get his image out of my face, because it's like, when have you ever been to a place and it's like, yeah, this person's a pedophile for sure. Like there's no doubt in my mind, you know, that this guy, you know how long it takes to make a comic,
right?
And that dude chose to make a comic of this shit, you know. Anyhow, But that the convention was amazing, and like I can conceptualize something like that working in the States, man, and just so blown away by that system, and the fact that system, that Comitia, is the smaller convention, because like there's only 25,000 people that came to there, when it's 700,000 that go to Comiket, and those numbers just blow my mind. But Aki had like the most sage-like thing to say about that, because it's not special to them. Like it's how it is. And he's like, yeah, but Ed, don't you understand? Like, it's the health of the culture of this. Like back in the States, right? You have T-ball and Little League and Pony League and college baseball and AAA and AA Bush leagues, and then you got the pros. Like same with basketball, same with everything. Like that's what we have here with comics. Like you got to have your T-ball, you got to have your Pony League. And I thought that was just such a smart way to look at it. He's like, the health of a medium, the health of a culture is based on the participation of the amateurs. And they use those terms, you know, amateurs, rookies, like they don't shy away from like labels like that. And he's like, if you don't have a giant amateur participation, like how can you have big hits and stuff? You know, it's a smaller pool trying to like, you know, capture gold. And I thought that was such a smart way to put it, because I mean, that is what it is. Like the reason why the top 10, you know, celebrity wealth generating humans in Japan or cartoonists is because like there's a lot of them making it, and there's a lot of competition for that top spot.
Yeah.
'Cause in America, they do have like that. I've never been to it. You know, at the small press fandom where they, but I've never seen anything like what you just showed.
No,
Oh,
it's nothing like
Yeah,
the comics can be like this. Like I could see this at Small Press Expo, something like this, no
right.
doubt. There's a
but just the book itself, the printing and things is just
Yeah, what I noticed about the doujinshis is that actually the printing and the creativity in the printing is actually better than a lot of American printed floppies. You know what I mean? Like Rachel bought one that looked like a coffin, and this thing had die cuts, embossing, everything, and it was like $1.25 American.
wow.
And it's just like that's nothing, you know?
Wow.
yeah, yeah. It's incredible. You know, they have their two kind of basic formats, but then you could get other stuff, just like anything. But like in America, our small press shows are so bifurcated. The culture of American comics is so fractionalized in a lot of ways, where like, you know, you got your manga people, like the small press expo type people. It's only now that people are admitting that they fucked with mainstream comics also, but like that Klaus and Chris Ware generation, like they
Yeah.
really created a situation where it's like you're with us or you're against us kind of
Mhm.
thing, and
Yeah.
we're still dealing with the ramifications of that to a small extent. You know, the hope is with stuff like Kayfabe, where me and Jimmy are just going through a bunch of stuff that we like, and it could be Stephen Platt, but it can be, you know, Love and Rockets #5,
Yeah.
to try to kind of, you know, bridge those gaps and shit. But just so inspiring being out there, man. Super inspiring. Geof, you took us out to dinner, like that one of those last nights that you guys were in town, and you introduced us to a new character,
Hero.
Hiro, the dude that did the Star Wars manga that Dark Horse put out some time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, well, you know, it was originally printed in Japan.
Sure, sure, but those were a big deal because before that, in the States, all we had was like we had like the Howard Chaykin joint that he admitted, you know, he was never allowed to see much of. You know, he had low res photos and kind of just like hacked out the artwork for that. You know, we had the Al Williamson joint for Empire, which is fucking sick. But like, yeah. So speak on that, Brian.
Yeah, so actually,
Show that shit off, dude. It didn't show up on the cam.
okay. So it's funny because I actually was familiar with Hero's work because of being a fan of these in the early 2000s. I was like 18, 19 years old. And so it was kind of funny that when we were looking at his work online and I was like, yo, Ed, he draws the best Darth Vader out of anyone. And it was funny, we're eating dinner and he had a Darth Vader drawing on his wallet. I was like, yo, there it is. I told you guys.
Yeah.
So it was a really cool experience. And then to come back home and look at the stuff again, you know, is really cool. I also was able to find his Neo Devilman work also. So that was kind of cool also. I found these like literally the next day, Geof. So that
Wow.
was kind of awesome.
It's so funny.
Explain Hero to the people, Geof, man. Like
I
this,
don't know that
this
I can't explain Hero to anybody.
does he because like we look at that Devilman thing, that's obviously that's a Go Nagai property. We see
Yeah.
the Star Wars joint. He doesn't own that.
Yeah.
Does he do some original stuff? Is he more an
Yeah,
illustrator?
He's done. I can't tell you the name of them because he sends it because they're in Japanese. But yeah, he has his own series. That one was something like Devil Angels, and they actually made a animated film of it. And he has his own stuff, and he'll do that stuff, you know, the Star Wars stuff, because he's an otaku. He's a big fan of all that stuff. I mean, I tried to hook him up with Dark Horse because he wanted to do Aliens versus Predator,
Which would be amazing.
and he wanted it, and then they said they would do it, and then, you know, I think Fox was coming out with a new Aliens, and then Fox got kind of antsy about, well, what is this guy going to do, and will he mess, because they're trying to get the franchise going again, the Predator and Aliens, and so it kind of fell apart, and he was just so obsessed with it. And I go, we had this kind of a bit of an argument. I go, draw your own stuff, man. Come on, Hero, that's the stuff. Draw stuff that you can own. But he was just so, obsessed with. I mean, the stuff that he liked when he was a kid. Like he did. You heard it. I kept joking with him about it. He did a Fist of the North Star comic. It was about Jaggy, the guy that has that kind of an eye. His head is held together by that mask that he wears. And God, he was always just going, Jaggy is misunderstood. I go, what do you mean he's misunderstood? I goes, he rapes, Ken's girlfriend. What's to be misunderstood about that? He goes, he's like, not that bad a guy. Well, he's a pretty bad guy. We don't argue about it. But I don't know if it's
actually, Geof, could you tell us a story about how you guys met? Because I'm curious myself, because you guys have such different personalities.
The funny thing is, I met him once and I didn't remember him, and I met him again later. But the first time I met him was I did all the press junkets for the Matrix movies, and they had a big party when Matrix came out, the first one, and they had this huge party in this hotel, and they had like Euro hookers that came in at one point that would go into the back room with people, and it was just crazy. And he was one of the guys that came that came to that party somehow. We got into it, and he remembers talking to me and this and that. I don't remember it at all. But then when I was working at Madhouse Animation, they were trying to do Shaolin Cowboys as an animated film. He was one of the guys that they hired to do character design, and our styles were just so different.
Yeah. Do you have any of that artwork from that time?
I do have like the books and such, and some of my drawings. And but he was doing some character design on it, and he was drawing at one point the girls, and then I did my version of the girls. And the girls, because there's a section in the movie with prostitutes, or it's set in a strip joint, and I was drawing them like, I remember the first time I went to a strip joint when I was younger, they were pretty kind of down on their out.
Yeah.
And I drew them. They look like this. It's not a happy life. And
right.
The way I drew them, they didn't look too. They weren't ugly, but they looked like they'd had a hard life, and that was too rough for them. They'd always say to me, "Is that your fantasy, Geof?" That's the way they would look. I mean, it's not, and they brought him in, and they all look like Vegas showgirls the way he drew them. And so the compromise was that they used his girls, but I got to do everything else. I think one of my girls got into the film. It was actually kind of animated, so we got to be friends there. And we just have stayed. Every time I go to Japan, I'd see him, and he had a bicycle accident while we were working on the film, and he fractured both his legs. So I went to see him in the hospital, and while he's working on the film, he's also working on this manga about, I don't know which one it was, but so he's in this thing, and his legs are in, traction. They're like up in the air in full cast with wires coming down to hold him so he can't move. And he's in there drawing his manga. While he's just like 2 days before he's had this multiple surgeries on his legs, but he's got to get his manga done and so that's how we got to know each other. And he speaks a little English enough that, we can communicate. And
yeah.
He always, whenever I go there, I see him, and he knows Bob, Afro Samurai, Bob, and, he was wearing the same clothes from when I met him in 2008. It's like an orange jumpsuit with a scarf and stocking cap, and that's his look. That's what he's chosen. But he would do. There was like a whole different revenue source for mangaka, and that is to draw comics that they put on those Pachinko games. And he would do that. They would if you get so many levels, you get another page of the manga. And he would do stuff. He was doing another one for Fist of the North Star.
Yeah, that was real popular, like on Pachinko machines.
Still is.
Yeah.
When I was there, I took a picture of one in Shinjuku that's still, and it was the same parlor. It's like right across. I used to stay in this place there called the Shinjuku Prince Hotel.
Yeah.
It's right in Kabuki-cho, not too far from that Toho cinema that has the big Godzilla head on it.
Yeah, it's exactly where we had to catch the second train to go get our Jiro sushi.
Yes.
It was the Tokyo Prince. I forget what station that is out there, but it's not part of the JR line.
No.
And you just stare at the Fist of the North Star Pachinko parlor. That is like so ridiculously loud. I don't know, Brian, like if you ever like walked your ass through one of those joints, but it's so ridiculously loud. It shakes your insides. Like it makes you want to vomit the sound. And all the guys who are sitting there, they have earplugs in. But like there must be some psychological
you know how it works, right?
I don't. I just see a bunch of balls coming down a little spinny thing.
It's gambling. They're in there. They're gambling.
Yeah.
What you do is when you win, if you win, you get all these balls. You can buy like a bottle of detergent or a box of detergent or I don't know, a can of something, and you can take that can down the block to specific places and they buy it from you.
Yeah.
For like $50. So it's like you're not gambling because you're winning. You're winning this box, but it's each item is worth more and more money, and they would take it and they cash it in for actual yen. And whenever there's like a new machine, you'd see a huge line waiting outside because they think that one, for some reason, that one will pay off first before any of the older ones. And there'll just be like a line around because I'd ask guys like Hiro and them, what is it with? Because I'd stay there, go, what's it with all these people? Like, oh, it's a new Fist of the North Star game, so they think it'll be good luck if they want to be the first ones to play it.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. And once again, that speaks more to that gray area stuff.
Yeah,
where you can't gamble, so we're just going to give you some balls.
Yeah, and then
create a system.
Buy this, and then you go over there and buy it, redeem it for this. I was there when they had a gigantic, one of the worst typhoons ever. They had trucks out telling everybody, stay inside, stay inside, stay inside. And that pachinko parlor shut down. But I remember watching from the window, the eye of the thing hit. And then when it passed, that pachinko parlor was up and running like 15,
It's the
20
first thing open.
Yeah, it was like, there's such an addiction, and it's just jammed full of people in there.
Yeah, it's wild. And the stuff that they choose for licensing on those, it is always so curious because, yes, the Fist of the North Star, like you see that Hara Tetsuo artwork everywhere, but there's also like the Monkey Punch, Lupin the Third ones.
Yeah, and there's animation. They do these animated things too that the more and some people are going to play just to see it's like a story, and the more, you get to a certain level and you get another piece of the story. It's like a little 20-minute film that you can only see if you play that machine.
Cost you $200 to watch or something.
Yeah. Oh, it was really great. Ken used his Hakuten level 78 that we've never seen before.
Yeah, but you got to put in some more yens, man, to see how the dude's head explodes or whatever.
Yeah, and you get an extra.
So that dinner we had, man, that was it was all three of us. It was Hiro, it was Takashi Okazaki, Bob, creator of Afro Samurai, and his wife. And his wife realized real quick that she was amongst a bunch of fucking nerds when we started talking that Otomo shit, and how like the interviews in the States that are translated where Otomo says that he's the only dude that made Akira, he didn't have assistants, but we know that he had assistants, and Satoshi Kon was one of the assistants, and that's when Hiro starts to go wild. Like when you talk about his fanboyishness, like we saw it on proper display there, because he was talking about
some page
volume 5 and 6, the backgrounds, how Satoshi Kon did those.
Right, and he could prove it.
Building.
Yeah, he could prove it, exactly.
You can go to the corner and you can see the cornice on the building was. Yeah.
Do you remember what you said, Geof?
Yeah, I remember because he was going on about it for so long. And he's really in depth, and he speaks like this. If you look at the cornice, and it's like, I'm like pulling the words out. I know it's not his language. It was going on for so long. And at one point, I said, yeah, because what was I talking about? Yeah, well, if you look at Peanuts, when Mobius was assisting Charles Schultz on Peanuts, you can tell the line work is different. And they were like, Hiro was like, really? And they go, no, I'm
like you were saying that bit, and you were kind of like being slow and deliberate because it's not these dudes not these dudes first language, so you got to kind of slow the roll, use simple adjectives, that type of shit, so you're saying your piece. But what's happening is he's becoming more engrossed because he just learned a new piece of information that he never knew, and he's buying every word. But then so is Takashi. Like, I'm seeing Takashi leaning over the table with his eyes fucking giant, and me and Bryan are like, oh man, Uncle Jeff's being mean, man, because these dudes are buying this shit, and then you're like, nah, fuck with you.
I've known him for so long, and I mean,
it's like brotherly.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned it that evening. I was told by Mike Arias, who is the director of Tekken King Creed, that if you tell them, they will. What do we call it? Is that irony, or is it, what would you call
sarcasm?
It? Sarcasm.
Yeah, sarcasm.
They will just buy it, and I would do that often, just say something, and I think this is so ridiculous that no one would ever believe this, but they do. I mean, I did that with Frank Miller once. It was like, afterwards he leaned over to me and he said, well, Geof, how come Hard Boiled number 3 was so late? And I said, because I just figured everybody knew I was just really slow. And I said, well, it's because I was waiting for the script. and Frank leans over and he goes, Geof, you can't say that, because they're going to believe you. Because I figured everybody knew it was my fault. But the Japanese, I'd run into that every once in a while. Yeah, just tell something. Oh, this is so stupid. No one's going to believe it. But then, oh, really? No. Oh, yeah.
Geof, did you come out with any cool toys or anything?
Not, like I said, I didn't buy too much. I bought a lot of stuff for my daughter and sent it off. But I got so much stuff that I don't know. Except for those few books of some of the same ones we bought, I didn't. No, I mean, you guys really. I did the one I showed you these. I got a couple. I'll buy stuff that because it's wrapped up in plastic, and every once in a while I go, well, I'm just gonna roll the dice on this. And I bought this was this was really great. This is
that's beautiful.
I mean, it just it was in a hardcover, and I like the drawing on the cover. Mm-hmm. And just the insides are just fantastic.
Oh, yeah, that's really lush.
It's all like full page illustrations. It's by, I think his name is Imamura, the guy that did Cyborg 009 and Kamen Rider. And I think, didn't he come up with the Power Rangers?
Yeah.
Power Rangers? It's just this beautiful, like, storybook. I don't know. And it says number 2, which makes you wonder what number 1 is. And then I picked up another illustrated book of an animated film that is a style of drawing that Toei did that was just, I think Miyazaki would work on these. And they're just these beautiful watercolor, excerpts from the film, but it's just a style of it. It's about the most exotic and probably the best things about, but they're wrapped up in plastic, and I got them at Mandrake. I said, I'll buy them. Because they said they would open them and let me look at them, but I always feel guilty. It's like I don't go into a shoe store and try on shoes unless I'm going to buy one.
Right.
So the same with books. I go, no, that's fine. It's fine. Just buy it.
Yeah, a lot of plastic consumption out there, man.
Yeah.
If not for just the gashapons, man, just all the plastic, everything's wrapped up in, and they want to make sure that we don't steal shit, so they got to tape our bags closed. And
yeah, that little piece of tape they put in the center.
Yeah. But so they'll use plastic at that level, man, but good luck trying to find like a paper towel to dry your hands after you leave a bathroom or something.
I had I learned that first time I went there, you have to come with like a little, like a
do-rag or something, a little babushka.
A little, what were they used to call them, a wallet. French and English, you get mixed up, but serviette, but it's not that. It's just you carry your own hand towel.
Yeah.
Which isn't especially in these days, but it's been like that forever. So, and I actually had one.
Yeah, that's the part that I forgot. Yeah. I forgot about that, man. So I was just running around. Had to go pick one up.
You're doing like this. You come out of the back
Yeah.
because they don't have those. I don't know. They did have it. They do have those like air dryer things.
Yeah, they had a lot of them blocked off with said due to COVID and whatever. They still take that social distancing stuff real seriously. Like when we were waiting for you guys for lunch, for that dinner, like there was those seats outside the restaurant. And they had like a little stop sign on every other chair to tell everybody like space it out.
Yeah.
Take that shit super seriously, man. And B, what were some of the last things you scooped up, man?
Yeah, I would say probably I'll show a couple of my favorite things. Is this, and Ed, you were there for this one.
Yeah.
Went out with Sean. I forget where we were at exactly, what area, but it was still Tokyo in general. But this is Kueda, and he did the Bat manga, if anyone's familiar. And so it was really cool to actually, I had no clue. I just bought it because of the cover,
Wow.
But then when you actually get on the inside, you can see a lot of that. I mean, this is from 65.
Wow.
So it's kind of cool to see the quality still retaining in those colors from a book. And this was like $4 or $5. Yeah, it's like falling apart, but still, you can still find this stuff everywhere. And so I didn't recognize the name at all because I don't read Japanese. But then when I opened it, I was like, oh, this is the same guy who did the Bat manga,
Yeah, and did Ape Man. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he may have done Speed Racer too, maybe.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That'd be awesome if he did. And then I got these. These were the other ones that I got of his work, which Elite Robot, I think it is, maybe. But yeah, he did Ape Man, Geof.
Sun Wide is an interesting publisher, man, because like that's the Spider-Man manga that I have that Ryoichi Ikegami did, came out under that label. So it's like they did superhero-ish stuff, like the most superhero-ish stuff that you can find in Japan.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously we already Ed and Geof, you guys already had these in your collection, but now I have these, which is the storyboards for Akira. So that's a highlight, obviously. And then I would say this little guy right here was pretty fun to find. So this is Tainami. He comes from that super flat movement. Let me get the reflection off of there. So this is a collaboration he actually did with Adidas. Let me find an example. So it's really cool because all this stuff you have to import it because of the they don't publish it in America in this size. So it's really cool to actually find his work out in the wild again. So yeah, that was probably, I would say, besides my video game haul, which we'll save that for like Kayfabe or something. But that was probably like definitely.
Were they like vintage games? Were like those? Like,
yeah, they're the Famicom, all the old stuff from the 80s. Because it's just cheaper, Geof. So it's
and you can excuse me because I'm ignorant about this stuff. You can play those still?
Yeah. I have a Famicom, so yeah, you can play those on modern hardware a lot of times. Then obviously Go Nagai. So I was able to find, because his stuff isn't published much in America, as we know, even though he's one of the more published mangaka. But to actually get a hold of some of this stuff was pretty cool to get. So yeah, that's definitely, I would say, the highlights of the stuff I got. So, how about you, Ed?
No, dude, so much stuff, man. It'll be episodes on the channel, and I think
you got all those. You got all that what Kikoman, I can't think of what his name is, the wrestler guy. You talked about before you went. You were gonna get a whole set of those books.
Yeah, and I got them. I got the Kinnikuman set in Bunko edition, man, because that line art is so spare that it's okay if you shrink it down a little bit, you still get the full story. So they somehow, with these bunkos, it's so fascinating, man. I think there's 18 volumes in this set, but it covers all of the Kinnikuman comics from the 80s, which is 37 volumes. And it's not like the paper's extra thin or something. I just have no idea how they did it, but it's such a small footprint, even though it does weigh fucking 5-6 pounds worth of stuff. But like, I'm calling it right now. The next viral video that me and Jimmy are gonna have, like, this is all Ninja Turtles doujinshi that I excavated from the lower depths of Mandarake, Nakano Broadway. Such titles as Pussy on Pussy and Had the Dick. So we know what we're in store for. But like, this is amateur publications, but it looks so professional. Like, yeah, that's the thing. Like, these guys, they choose to, they have the skill set to fucking be badasses, but they choose to draw Ninja Turtles like 69 and cocks and stuff. 69 and turtle dicks. Like, that's a fucking dope drawing.
That's like the Michael Bay version too. Like, they really get into the characters. Usually we just use the stock turtles.
Yeah. Like I think because like I bought some Watchmen doujinshis.
Really?
I bought some. You
got that Fantastic Four one, right, Ed?
I did, yeah, and that thing is fresh as fuck, dude. Like what that is.
I was wondering because I was hoping that artwork was going to be clutch.
Yeah, it was all that same dude, so that's a good thing, right? And it turns out that he's like an animation director, like he's a famous dude. So it's just kind of like, just like a side hustle that he did.
Wow.
I'm
amazed that as an animation director, he has any kind of time to do anything other than that.
Yeah.
Seeing all those guys work.
That's this piece right here.
Yeah, that's
and like check that shit out, dude. That fucking Galactus Silver Surfer joint. But he has artwork, like he does even like a fucking Andrew McLean headlopper joint in here.
Really?
Like the modern day Image comic shits. But this will be an episode for sure.
Nice.
Like he did this like big ass Bane.
Oh yeah.
Ain't that hard as hell?
Yeah.
I got a Spawn doujinshi.
How did you find that, Ed? By the way,
There was
they have a bunch of them.
They didn't, man. They had like a section where like your best shot of finding American properties would be like on these 3 bookshelves.
Okay, got it.
And they're all so thin,
Yeah,
like,
there's a few pages.
So like you just gotta comb through a couple thousand. But there, and Geof, you talk about like you had your times where it's like you got to go to Nakano Broadway just by yourself.
Yeah.
Without anybody, because you got to go dig in and just have that time for yourself. That was. Well, that was my shit, and I'm embarrassed because who knows what the hell I'm pulling out. But like here's a Watchmen doujinshi with like a cute little Rorschach.
Wow.
Another Watchmen doujinshi, and there's a lot of love between Rorschach and Night Owl in these various joints, man. But it has nothing to do with the comics. It's
use the aesthetics.
It's just the movies, man. Like so, like the comedian looks like the actor guy from the flick and shit like that. Just some more various like I could only open up 1 or 2 turtle doujinshis at a time before I've had my fill for the day. Pause, no pun intended. There's a lot of. In order for me and Jimmy to do the episode, I gotta get a lot of like I have those like very tiny Post-it notes that are about this big, so I have to go through all these fuckers and just put Post-it notes up with all the assholes and coming and all that shit, man, just so that we could do a proper episode.
It's gonna get so blurry, Ed, that you're gonna like miss one.
Yeah.
That's gonna get you.
Inevitably.
It's like you showed Raphael's asshole. Sorry.
and then one of the other things that we did was in Ginza there was that Atsushi Kaneko art show.
Oh yeah, that was great.
And I scooped up the sort of monographs of his works. Very, very. I would say his influence is very Western.
Yeah, totally.
Like it's got like a Jamie Hewlett vibe. It's got a Charles Burns vibe to it.
Yeah, so that Charles Burns was heavy.
And like so much of these manga illustrators use Maru nibs and G pens and shit, but he uses brush, so it creates a much different aesthetic than what you typically get from Japanese comics. And then I got so much, like I got almost all those Miyazaki storyboard books, but those are shipped. And then I got 2 rounds. Like I brought in my luggage 1 round of Shonen Jumps where I wanted 1 issue from every year from 1980 to 1991, which is like my sweet spot, Like the early stuff you get like Cobra, and I think Kinnikuman is in that early joints. And then 91 starts to show up Slam Dunk and Dragon Ball is Goku is adult Goku and shit. But JoJo starts to show up. I got 2 rounds of that. So one round is being shipped, and the other round is here. And my thought is like do an episode a month on Kayfabe, showing off, one of these things, because not only do you have your heavy hitters, Dr. Slump will start off pretty soon in like 81 or 82, but there are some incredibly accomplished, beautiful looking manga that failed in the surveys and gets canceled. And these are mystical magazines to me. My pops would go to work in Korea and bring back 1 or 2 of these, and Dragon Ball was the only title I could read, or Slam Dunk, and there's like one that's like something blues, but every other one, it's just like, what the fuck kind of comics are these? They even show like weird dick and balls things, and it's supposed to be for kids, but you would have no idea. In some of these, man, there's like 2 or 3 different tennis manga. There are just these one shots too that are just amazing, that when you go to Japan for the first time and you visit your first comic shop, you realize that all that we get in the States is the tip of the iceberg, and every day's an education out there, man.
Yeah, it's as if I was lied to, honestly. Like when I was out there, I was like, wait, hold on. There's 30 years of like Go Nagai's art just sitting here on the shelf, and it's not sacred. Like the prices are affordable.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because like just
And
millions and millions. Yeah, millions and millions of copies of these things were out. You know what I mean? Like a Go Nagai comic might have sold 50 million copies. So like supply and demand, well, there's fucking plenty of them out there. But I know what you mean. I don't think of it as lying, but it's almost that same shit as like, what was that dude from Nintendo that like made sure that Mario 2 didn't come? Howard Phillips, the dude with the bow tie. It's like the shit that comes to us is curated by people. And when you like look at like the trajectory, like when Viz started publishing, and it's like, we had Lone Wolf and Cub, that makes sense. We were into ninja shit at that time. The Viz books that come, it's the 3. It's Mai the Psychic Girl. So like that's X-Men, that's some psychic, that's Carrie, Stephen King shit. Like that was in our pop culture. Kamui is like, Lone Wolf and Cub is fresh. We can't get that license, but like that's, the next best. And then we had that Area 88 joint, which Maycross and Voltron and all that shit was on TV. So you could see one for one.
Yeah.
The thought process of all the business people that brought shit over to us, and just think about the slow build and slow evolution of like getting Americans to kind of like get on board with manga and understand it. I think that maybe that Raijin Comics that I had a subscription to, I think that might have been some of the first manga that was not flipped, that you read right to left. You know what I'm saying, man? And that came out in like 2002 or something. Right. So we've been so slow into getting stuff, and it's so curated for us. But man, when you go out there, it's like, no, this is the fly shit. That's the other thing. I got like 5, 6 Maruo books that like have never come to America. What, we got 2 books from that motherfucker, and he's got like a whole line out there. So much shit. But like, I didn't even open this joint yet. But yeah, I got a ton of stuff. It's going to be a lot of episodes on Kayfabe. We'll sprinkle them throughout the year. Probably that Turtles Dojiji will be super high on that list, man, because we just know that people are going to go bonkers. Like, you see the homophobia of people come out, man, when you show that shit on like, Instagram, and they're like, why you think it's normal to be showing this shit, man? I was like, yeah, just you wait.
Just you wait, buddy.
After I saw like that behavior, I promise you, I was looking close to try to find some Punisher shit with gay sex in it, man. Because that would just be the ultimate.
Dude. They made it.
That would be the ultimate.
You just couldn't reach high enough on the shelf, Ed. That's like a little bit higher.
That's it. And it wouldn't be based on the comics. It would be based on like the Thomas Jane movie or something like that. Because they shit on our comics. And after you like really dig deep and get into this stuff, you kind of see the work that we have to do. The cream rises here, no doubt. But there's a lot of work that we have to do, man, because a lot of stuff that people hold up high here would carry zero weight out there.
Exactly. It shows how young we are actually as comic creators. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, that's a terrible way to
As a
put it.
culture. Yeah.
But one of the interesting things that I found out there was that the first three issues of Shonen Jump had American shit in it.
Oh, really?
It had two Al Williamson strips, Corrigan and Secret Agent X9,
Yeah.
and then Mandrake the fucking magician had was like in issue 2 or something, and then they threw that shit to the wayside. It was like, fuck this,
Yeah.
you know, we'll do our own thing, man.
Even as a kid, Mandrake was always like, "What is this guy?"
I don't. These
he just like an illusionist, and then he had that horrible Lothar, the guy. I thought he was like a Shriner. He was, he was this African. I guess he was the muscle guy in the thing, and then he had this girl who was always. I was thinking as a kid, I was like, oh, she was always running around in a bikini, and I was kind of interested in that. That was the only adventure strip they had in the paper when I was a kid. Was that and Rex Morgan, MD.
You know, in that World Encyclopedia of Comics, the one that had your dude Kato in it, they even cite Rex Morgan MD comics as sucking ass even back then. I forget what they called it, but basically it's you know, to have a space on a daily strip, like you don't relinquish that if it's up to you. So they just were shitting that thing out for decades.
That's the word.
And all the same ones, man. All that like Mary Worth, all that stuff. They cite nothing critically nice about any of that shit.
And Mark Trail, that was the other. Mark Trail seemed like forest ranger. He looked like Fred McMurray, had this fleece jerky, and he always had a pipe. I was like, what? Nothing ever happens. It's like, look at that tree. I think it's growing. You think so? Yeah. It's getting taller. Yeah. Well, tune in next week to see if the roots take hold.
And it is always astounding, like the Phantom and Mandrake the Magician, how they like grow legs the way they do outside of our country, you know?
Like the Phantom in Australia was like huge long after it died here.
Yeah. You know, it's just like,
oh, really? Hey.
You know, it's David Hasselhoff, man. You know, that type of shit. He's a respected musician in Germany.
Starsky and Hutch in France. It's been on constantly. It was on so long, it would show it on Sunday. And when I moved here, the show had been off for 10 years and it was still running. And the fashions had come back. That the bell bottoms of it had started coming back. And I was like, oh, man, now it looks modern again. Like it sort of.
I would love to hear the French Huggy Bear and what he may sound like.
And his name is, in French, it's the friendly pimp. And it has a theme song. And the American said dun 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 dun, you know, like something like that. But then it's Starsky Hutch. They're two good friends who fight crime all the time. Blah 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 blah. And it's like, oh my god, it's worth it. Just I'll tape it sometimes on my phone and send it to you because it's so funny. It's like, yeah.
The friendly pimp.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how that shit works, man. I used to, like, I would have this Spanish homie at art school and just, like, ask him the translated titles of movies that are popular in, like, Madrid, Spain, when he lived there. And just the translation would just be ridiculous.
I'd sit there with my wife and I go, wait a minute, they translated, you know, something like, I know, some great title, like, and it's just they literally translated to, he is holding a hammer. It's like Hammerhead. It's like, he is holding a hammer. Something goofy like that. How do you take, you know, Citizen Kane was probably something like a newspaper czar.
Yeah.
The one that I remember is Knight Rider translates to fantastic car in Madrid, Spain. Anyhow, man, guys, thank you so much for joining, man. That was Manga Quest 2022. It's going to, you just caught a small glimpse with this conversation, but it's one of those transformative experiences. If you have the chance to go to a country where comics are that respected, it makes you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. It makes you feel like you're in a place that embraces all the work and effort that you put into your craft. And to be perfectly honest, man, it changes the artwork when you get back home and you digest this stuff and you sit with it and you go through all this work. And it's going to affect the channel over the next year with a lot of the bounty that we siphoned from those various stores and stuff. And I fully anticipate there being a Manga Quest 2023. I hope to go out there with you guys and do the same. This time, man, I'm taking Jim Rugg out there kicking and screaming, whether he likes it or not.
Jimmy, you're coming, bro.
Yeah, you gotta go. And I would like to see anybody who's thinking of going to Japan and they're worried about it because, well, I don't speak the language. Don't be worried. People speak English over there, and it's pretty self-explanatory over there. Don't be afraid to go to some place.
Yeah, and I can actually agree with that wholeheartedly because, like, as you know, I'm Black, obviously, and people were like, "Oh, Bryan, they treat Black people different." It's like, well, that's a lie. It's not true. It may have been in the past, perhaps, but had no issues. Everyone was helpful, more helpful there than they are here. So it was amazing, very positive.
Yeah, man.
It's a good cultural experience for anybody, I think, at any rate, to go, whether it's Japan or France, anywhere. Go to another country and see that, another point of view on life, and it opens up a lot of doors for you.
Geoff, I feel like you're in the catbird seat of it all, man, because, like, what are the three big cultures that embrace comics, man? It's Japan, France, and America.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got the little tentacles everywhere.
Yeah. But I always feel like I'm somewhere over the Atlantic in the Pacific because I'm not quite American, I'm not quite French, I'm not quite Japanese. I don't know what the hell I am. It's a horrible hybrid thing.
You're one of a kind, man, and it's a pleasure getting to know you.
Thank you. It was really great meeting you, Bryan, and
Yeah,
I'm really glad I went to that exhibit with you guys, and I wasn't going to go, and I thought, oh, what the hell? And I was really glad I went because that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was a great experience, and thank you for this book once again. It's funny because it actually has like value to me, not in the context of a book, but that you gifted it. So it's very appreciative.
I have a question for you. Did Ed give me that 1,000 yen? Because I realized
no, he kept it. He kept it. No, he gave it to me. I'm joking. But you didn't have to do that.
Well, I don't think. Somebody was going to that take it for granted that like, oh, I'm going to give you this pen for free. I didn't want you to think I was.
No, not at all. I didn't even think about it that way. But it was very considerate, very polite.
You know, it was fun too. Like thinking about it, we could have even started off the show with the shit, but like. While I was traveling, because I went out there a couple of days ahead of you guys, but I was like brokering that deal because like you guys didn't know each other at that point.
Yeah.
And Geoff saw the Ren and Stimpy episode that we did at your studio and was like, man, I like that one. Yeah. He's like, man, I like that one piece with the dudes riding the horseback.
Yeah, it's a great piece.
Yeah, and I was like, well, Bryan got like maybe 10 of them.
Yeah.
Because I thought when he said you got that big pile, I thought, God, you must have paid like, I don't know, thousands of dollars for those things.
Yeah, well, I can tell you the price off air, but basically it was really cheap per piece. But yeah, it was pretty wild. And the guy sat on it for like years. He didn't even care about it.
Wow.
He thought it was like he's going to use that as promotion for his store and give them away.
When I was at Hanna-Barbera, they'd throw that stuff out in the dumpster, and every once in a while we'd go out there and look. I mean, there was just so much. I mean, how many cells do I need of Barney Rubble, but
right.
The Smurf stuff, and they just they couldn't keep that stuff. There's so much of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you even saw the residue because I brought you that one piece, that Batman piece, and I was like, that was just in the stack with the rest of it. And I was just like, okay, this is random. So I can imagine how much of that got tossed away.
Yeah, so like you had that piece, and then Geoff brought a lot of drawings out to sell. Original drawings, and then you guys brokered that deal, man, to trade a Nixon joint for a Ren and Stimpy, man, and that was like the first connection. We were handling that shit while I was like in the airport.
Yeah, it's funny. I carry it everywhere with me and study, Geoff. I just keep it by my side. I'm just like, all right, I gotta learn, absorb all the energy.
Geoff, yeah, it was so fun seeing Geoff draw, man, like just on the tabletop and stuff, and going through all those pieces. Here's the biggest regret of the whole weekend, man, and I'll flash up a little image of that shit, dude. Everybody needs to see it. especially if they sat through this video that long, man. But Geof Darrow drew this Spider-Man piece.
Oh, that thing's garbage.
Oh, that is not garbage. Do you see the folds in the gear?
Yeah, it's simple.
Well, the only thing that was interesting about that was that I was told when I was there, because I also did a drawing of Totoro because I like to draw it, and that stuff is like you can't do that over there. They told me that they'll come in because it's trademark stuff, and at the comic conventions like that, they said that they'll come and they'll take them away. So
that's wild.
Yeah. Wow.
But that piece went fire, man. Like I took a flick of it and put it on my Instagram, and everybody was flipping, seeing that Spider-Man joint, and that's the one that, like, man, I should have bought that thing off you.
I'll send you the drawing. I got the drawing.
You still have, you didn't sell it?
Well, I've got the pencil drawing because I draw on a light box. So
right. Did you look at reference for that, man? Because like people were like, oh, dude, like that looks like a kick flipping skateboarder.
I think I had a picture of. I can't remember. Yeah, I had like a picture of like a super. I think I looked at like a Power Ranger thing, and I just like changed it because I like the. I wanted to get the like. I wanted him to look like he was wearing a costume.
Yeah.
Like the
he nailed it.
I don't know, because I mean, whenever they talk about drawing Batman, I always wanted to draw Batman like he was in one of those serials or like Adam West, because I think it's not the not the body armor one, but because I don't know.
The cloth costume.
He looks kick ass, in the Christopher Nolan films, but if I was like, God, if he could draw like Adam West and take him seriously and have him fucking killing people, that would be fantastic. But they never let me do it.
They'd be fools not to let you do it, Uncle Geof, man. Guys, thank you so much for joining me here on Kayfabe. We are back in the States for the past month. We've been putting up episodes from the archives, but just before we get out of here, Bryan, I think your Outer Heaven book's got a reprint.
Yeah, it came through.
What else you got out there, man? Let the people know.
We got Eightfold Path that's currently out through Abrams, and then Outer Heaven #1 is out. And I got inspired, and I'm working on my manga. We use that word loosely, but I'll start uploading that in about 2 weeks. I have about 8 pages done, and I'll be kicking it and promoting it through the Patreon. So I'll keep everyone up to date on that.
Super cool. And Geof, the collection for Shaolin Cowboy must be forthcoming.
It's coming out in April.
Yeah. Awesome.
Big oversized book.
Anything else to promote before then? And by the way, when that trade comes out, we gotta reconvene, man, and sell some copies.
That'd be nice. Yeah. No, I've told you I've been working on a comic book. I'm 30 some pages into it, and I don't know if I'll ever finish it or if it's worth continuing with. So I don't know what I'm going to do.
I feel like I've known you long enough. Geof, that I feel like that might be your process.
I don't know. It's a very odd thing because I don't know. I think am I repeating myself? I mean, comics are repeating anyway. People want the same thing. I don't know.
You know what, man? That's another piece that's in this Otomo interview that's so great, in that Art of Wall thing, where he's cutting down series mangaka that have 20 volumes, 30 volumes. He's like, that is no story. That is formula. Fuck that shit.
Yeah, I can't disagree with him. But I mean, but people like it. It's familiar,
Yeah.
I love Dragon Ball, and I mean, after some point, it's just like one tournament after another. It's basically the same story. He always manages to make it more interesting, but
yeah. He also talks about when he was starting out, when he was just Kohai to some bigger mangaka. He was assisting on a mahjong manga, which is very, very popular out there. There's whole weekly magazines of just mahjong manga. So there might be 10, 15 guys tackling the subject every week. You could buy that manga.
wow.
And he was assisting on one, and he was awake for 4 whole days.
Oh,
And his only duty was drawing and using, tech pens and rulers and shit, fucking mahjong tiles.
I was gonna say that.
Oh my god, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
Well, drawing all those squares probably helped him when he did Akira, all those bills, those windows, because Holy shit, man.
Yeah.
That's why we go back to that whole thing when he says he did it all by himself. There's no fucking way he could do that.
No way. There's no way.
Anyway.
And
there's
that-
no secret, and
that's Jeff Darrow talking. Like we know what Jeff Darrow's artwork looks like. Man, so-
I had I had as much time as I wanted to do it. I mean, he's like, you know, that weekly thing, and when you hear those things, like they have to have a conference with their editor to decide whether the installment, the story in the installment is correct. They spend 2 days deciding on that. I'd be like, dude, oh, watching my clock, man.
Mhm.
Yeah, totally, man. But anyhow, that Art of Wall interview, like that's a must-have read, because just the insights of Otomo's mindset is just it's astounding stuff. Thank you guys so much, man. Here's the Manga Quest 2023. Maybe have a couple more soldiers rolling out there, man, taking over the city. Have no idea what else to even scoop up from out of there, man. Because like when I got home and started looking at things, that first day back, I didn't go to sleep for hours, even after traveling more than 24 hours, because I'm like, holy shit, I accidentally fucked up and brought back all the best stuff that exists in Japan, in Tokyo, man. It felt illegal. It felt like I stripped like natural resources from some place or something.
There's lots more.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And we're going to get it, man. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And everybody out there, man, read more manga.